Tonight's meeting is available to live stream via the Park District website. All information about the Park District meetings can be found at winpark.org under the Park District Info tab by selecting Board Meetings and Videos. Public comments are accepted in person. A link to the video and audio will be posted immediately following this evening's meeting. To improve the sound while listening to the meeting, please turn up the volume on your computer and turn up the volume on the website. The meeting packet for tonight's meeting is located on the website. For those attending tonight's meeting, the emergency exits from the room are the door behind you or through the foyer. To improve the quality of the sound, there is a boom microphone directed toward the commissioners. The microphone likely will pick up additional audience noise and sidebar conversations. If you are predisposed to not hearing well, please move to the front row. The board asks for your cooperation to maintain decorum. There is no clapping or booing. Please be considerate and refrain from interrupting board members and other speakers. We are a community coming together to discuss issues. I'd like to call to order the June 26, 2025 regular board meeting at 6 p.m. Commissioner Root has made a request to participate remotely in tonight's meeting. It is requested due to a qualifying event under section 4.26 of the Board Policy Manual, personal illness or disability. Commissioner Root is currently on the phone. May I have a motion to approve Commissioner Root's request to participate remotely in tonight's board meeting as permitted under section 4.26 of the Board Policy Manual, remote attendance, and in accordance with the Illinois Open Meetings Act?
So moved.
Second.
Do I need a roll call vote?
Sensible.
Yep.
Yes.
Commissioner Hodo?
Yes.
Commissioner Corley?
Yes.
Commissioner Rapp?
Yes.
Commissioner Root?
Yes.
Commissioner Seaman?
Yes.
Commissioner Tyson?
Yes.
Commissioner Gibson?
Yes.
Flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can we do a roll call for opening the meeting?
Commissioner Corley?
Yes. Present.
Commissioner Rapp?
Present.
Commissioner Root?
Yes.
Commissioner Seaman?
Here.
Commissioner Tyson?
Here.
Commissioner Gibson?
Here.
Commissioner Hodo?
Here.
Shannon, announcement?
Absolutely. So this Saturday, June 28th, we'll be offering free family yoga at 10 a.m. at Station Park at the Farmers Market. So get registered or come on down for that. That should be a good time, a new event that we're doing in collaboration with the Farmers Market. Registration is open for many of our camps still for this summer: sports, beach volleyball, sailing, rowing, and cheer, just to name for a few. And if you haven't purchased your beach passes yet, renewals can be made online or visit our administrative offices to purchase or renew your passes. And then also be sure to attend one of our many concerts in the park this summer: Wednesday in the Woods at Hubbard Woods, 11 a.m. children's concerts, and 7 p.m. evening concerts every Wednesday. And then also 4th of July is right around the corner. So that day we'll start with the Firecracker 5K, stepping off at 7:30 a.m. The parade starts at 10 a.m. and Village Green races and children's activities are immediately after the parade. And the evening concludes the day with the Breakfast Club Band at 7 p.m., Jesse White Tumblers at 8 p.m., and fireworks around 9:20.
All right, can we move on to the approval of the agenda? Are there any requests for changes or additions to the agenda? All right, may I have a motion to approve the June 26th agenda as presented?
So moved.
Second.
This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
For the public, this is your opportunity to address the board on any issue. When called upon to come, please come to the center position in front of the commissioners and stand at the podium. Speak into the microphone, state your name for the record, and speak directly to the board. Based on the public comment policy described in the board policy manual and referenced in Public Access Counselor Opinion 2024 Pact 81900, guests may present public comment for no longer than 3 minutes after being recognized. If you prefer to share your comments in writing this evening, you may do so by leaving your comments with a member of the Park District staff. Do we have public? Okay, wonderful.
Good evening. I am Scott Myers and have the honor of being one of the organizers of the Winnetka Music Festival, maybe 2/3 of a year. But once again, was a very successful year, and you know the festival is one that cannot be successfully executed without the involvement of the community. It's the village, it's the park board, it's the residents, whether it's providing funds, whether it's providing equipment, whether it's providing housing for the musicians, whether it's coming and helping, you know, volunteer at the event. It all adds up. And you know, in talking to the folks from Space who are involved in the festival, our festival is, a lot of them are failing. And a big reason why ours is continuing to thrive is because of, it's both a music fest and a community festival. And so the involvement of the park board year after year has been a key part of that. I have to say that I have two very favorite parts of the music fest. One is each night standing at the back of the stage, looking out at 5,000 people having fun. The other is turning on the light stand that Costa has brought and sending all those people home so that I can go home. So I want to thank you again for helping us provide something to our community that I think has become well loved and very successful. So thank you.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Scott.
Do we have anyone else who would like to make public comment? Please come forward.
Good evening. My name is Charles Orth. I'm a trustee on the village board in the village of Northfield in my second term. And we've done some reorganization with the board. And so now I am the new liaison to the Winnetka Park District Board for the village of Northfield. I'm also the liaison for several other community outreach support systems, you know, for the village of Northfield. I live in East Northfield. I've lived here 66 years. I was one of the coaches that coached both my daughters out here on these fields. Played softball out here for many, many years. Here, so I'm a proud resident. I came to your short meeting last month, the one I think that went from like 6 to 10:30. So that was first meeting. So I'm hoping that that's not the length of all the meetings in the future. But I'll be attending the meetings. I just want to introduce myself. I was a battalion chief at the fire department in Wilmette for 30.5 years, and I was the fire marshal at Highland Park for 9, and the last 5 I spent as a fire inspector in Libertyville. So I started my career in the fire service when I was 20 in Northfield, paid on call. So I've got 46 years of municipal government service and knowledge, and so I'm anxious and pleased to come and, you know, listen to what goes on here. And obviously I've been involved in this community, you know, as a whole, north of Winnetka forever. So I enjoy the golf courses. My wife and I play golf on both courses. So I just wanted to introduce myself and thank you for all the hard work. I know it's a difficult task being a trustee. I know that there's lots of situations we're not always on the right side of what people think is the right answer for the situation. So I appreciate your time and effort, and I will be attending the meetings. So I just want to introduce myself. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Orr. Would anyone else like to make public comment?
Hi, Ted Lanchenko. So I'm not really here to talk about license agreement, although it is kind of interesting that you apparently acknowledge that ownership of land that may or may not be owned by 261 Sheridan. Regardless, it's just an act by a private entity to create a narrative to their liking, and the Park District is complicit in that. The reason I came by today, though, is to just reiterate, since it's on your agenda, this little memo from the Winnetka Caucus. So, you all, well, except for one, but in general, you all are from the caucus. You all were advanced by the caucus. You kind of agreed that you would honor the caucus as a representative of the wishes of the community, that you would advance those positions. And that, that's what you stood for, right? And just like it looks like everywhere else in politics, it looks like more of that is just like lies and deception to advance an agenda that the person that's in power wants to advance. Because the caucus explicitly said that the exchange or the donation agreement with Mr. Ishbia's foundation needed to be reworked, right? It was explicit, it's like the plank, right? And you all agreed to advance that. And instead of sitting down and saying, okay, we're gonna go back and rediscuss this, at the spring town hall, because the permits haven't been issued yet and stuff. Well, if it's too early to discuss the renegotiation of the agreement, it was way too early to discuss and accept the agreement a year ago, right? Because if it's too early to do what the caucus as a representative and voice of the village said you should do, then you really shouldn't have done it last year when you accepted it without any guidance, one individual. And I guess it's the way of our society now.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to make public comment?
Well, did it rain here? Seriously?
A little bit.
It poured. Wow. It was poured a little bit further east. Okay. Over here on the wall is the Winnetka Park District mission statement. And I'm going to read it to you. Is this thing on? Okay.
Thank you, Laura.
Thank you. The Winnetka Park District's mission statement is to provide a balance of quality recreation and leisure opportunities. This includes protecting assets, natural resources, and open space for the benefit of current and future generations. You have a vision, and the vision is to build an active, vibrant community by promoting healthy lifestyles through quality park district. The Park District tonight is attempting to present and vote on a plan for the future of the Park District, and this is being presented to the public for the first time that I'm aware since it's been completed, and it's only been on the agenda or on the website for 2 days, 48 hours. So the Park District has not really put out any information about this comprehensive plan that I'm aware of. I'm speaking for myself and for others, and we would like a response from each voting member. I lost my pager. Each voting member on this board you call, and I think you're talking about the open space. You call the open space valued land, or the new valuation of land, something like that. I don't have it in my notes. And I just don't understand what that means. So if it would be okay with all of you, I would like to get a response to that question. I know it won't happen tonight, but what does that mean? And that was only one spot, one time and one place where open space, which is our most valuable commodity in this community. Our programs are good, any park district can do programs, but our open space, which can never be replaced, is not even mentioned in this comprehensive plan the way I read it. So I would like to have a response to that. And I thank you for your efforts on this, but I do think that you need to remember what the mission of the Winnetka Park District is. It's not your mission, it's the mission of the community for this park district. It's not what this board wants or the last board wants. It is the community.
Do we have anyone else who would like to make public comment? All right. With that, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Does anyone wish to have any item removed from the consent agenda? If not, objection or request for removal of any specific item from the consent agenda for individual consideration, we will act on the following items with a single vote. Section 3.1, May 22 regular meeting minutes. Section 3.2, May 22 annual meeting minutes. Section 3.3, May 2025 financial report. Section 3.4, ordinance number 2025-00 surplus trailer unit number 61. Section 3.5, ordinance number 2025-006 surplus trucks. May I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Oh, could I do a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Rath,
Yes.
Commissioner Root,
Yes.
Commissioner Seaman,
Yes.
Commissioner Tyson,
Yes.
Commissioner Kodo,
Yes.
Commissioner Forley,
Yes.
and Commissioner Husting.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, at this time, we'd like to move on to presentations, and we're going to have a presentation by Matt Bogush with the Winnetka Council, Caucus Council, and he is the Parks Committee Chair.
Good evening. Is this thing on? It's been a while since I've heard a consent agenda read aloud in the room, so that was fun. I think those kids outside would also like it if you all pushed the button and kept the rain away, because they were pretty pissed when they walked off the field once. I don't think they want to be doing it again. This is not a presentation, this is an opening to a dialogue, and I hope a productive and positive one. We on the Caucus Council have a lot of respect for people who put their names on a ballot and agree to serve their community. So thank you. Without you doing what you do, we wouldn't have a community to live in. I wouldn't have a golf course to play on, a paddle court to play on. My kids wouldn't be in camp in not this building, but across the street and over at Christ Church with your staff. I wouldn't be able to have my paddleboard out on Lloyd or play with my kids over on Towers. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And you know, I'll say it 3 more times, thank you, thank you, thank you, because I don't think you're gonna get a lot more of that in the next couple hours. Okay, so thank you, check. I also want to thank you for respecting the wishes of those who participated in last year's survey. 60% of whom asked you to find a temporary solution for the beach. It was an interesting question and one that we haven't asked in the past, in that we made a discrete effort to have an intergovernmental question asked to say play nice and get a short-term solution. And last week, my kids and I were on the beach at Elder. So we'd love to be in the water. Maybe we'll hear an update about that tonight. We'd love to be in the water soon, but we appreciate there being a short-term solution, and for everybody obviously hearing the community, 60% of which really appreciate that action. So thank you very much for that. Two quick asks, so 3 thank yous. I do have 2 asks. The first of which is, thank you, Shannon. Let's continue the conversation on the other open items and planks from 2024 that we'd love status and progress on. We're committed to them, we're watching, we'd love to have a productive dialogue and get the ball moving. So that's ask number 1. Ask number 2 is, for this upcoming survey, we have no intention of asking questions or soliciting input on items that are knowable, things that we already have a perspective on. The committee will be focused exclusively on programs and services this year, nothing on capital. So in your previous plans and your upcoming plan, if there's any feedback or anything that you'd like to know discreetly from us that we might be able to slip in there that might help inform a programming or service related topic, let us know so we can think about it and try and get it into the survey. But we will not be engaging on any topics related to capital. That's the extent of my presentation. So
Thank you.
I recognize I'm here not in public comment, so I don't know. Do you have any questions?
I don't, no, Cynthia, go ahead.
Thank you for your service on the caucus. Certainly, it also can be a thankless job, but as a commissioner, I find the survey and the work that you do very helpful. I know it's difficult to vet candidates and see the process through, so a debt of gratitude for that as well. Regarding your question, I have been giving this a little bit of thought in terms of programs and services, and the things that have been coming up with me are, to what extent should the Winnetka Park District be prioritizing residents in their programs? Do people feel like they are prioritized or not at the various different facilities that we have? And
Just for clarity, residents versus non-residents?
residents versus non-residents. As versus active spaces. And then, also in terms of, and particularly for our sports facilities, topics that, have come up in our discussion, not exactly in that way, but when I think about serving the residents and, what do the residents want, I feel like trying to get a little bit more information in those areas could be helpful as we move through the next phases of our planning.
Great, thank you for that feedback. If you're
you.
amenable, I might bug you in the next couple of
I
weeks.
don't know if I'm allowed, because we do have our liaisons. I mean, I'm amenable, but.
Do you have
I
any
don't-
issue?
I'm not trying to control anybody's communication, so.
I don't bite either, so.
But I would make one point in regards to Cynthia's topic, is that hockey, paddle, golf, and tennis, those are enterprise businesses. They don't receive tax dollars,
Yep.
other than for FICA, as I understand. So that's a fee-based user business. But when you think about our parks, our beaches, Skokie Playfield, those are the people that live in this community. That's not, the business model doesn't work that way. So it is important for the caucus, as you craft these questions, to realize the difference between enterprise businesses and non-enterprise businesses.
Well, we are lucky to have a liaison who will make sure that we get it right. None of this works, none of this helps if it's anybody's surprised or if there are any big gotchas. So we'll be talking.
Yeah, okay, great. Thank you.
Does anyone else have a question? Colleen, do you have a question?
This is Colleen. May I ask a question?
Yes.
Hi. Mr. Bogert, thanks so much for coming this evening. This pigtails somewhat Commissioner Rath's question with respect to passive versus active parks. One of the issues that was important during the 24-25 park platform was year that included organic technology. It also is relevant to where the village of Winnetka is headed with their focus on sustainability.
We'll keep that in mind, thank you. And I do know that that on our list of things to talk about with your staff and liaison are the organic parks plank from 2024. When we're talking active and passive, is that what you're talking about, the enterprise versus non-enterprise properties?
No.
So what's an active and what's a passive?
I don't know. Cynthia brought it up.
So, when we get into terms that are kind of specific to Parks and Rec, I sometimes want to be able to, I forget sometimes what is more of a Parks and Rec term than a general public term sometimes. So an active park is more considered something that you are doing an active activity where you're playing baseball, you're playing soccer, you're playing lacrosse, you're doing those types of things, where Skokie Playfield is absolutely an active park. Nick Corwin is an active park. But then you look at a facility like Bell Woods, that is a passive park, because that is of a little park. So little
or parks that are mainly just for pass through. West Elm is a passive park where there are no active amenities for folks to walk through type
Great, that's clear.
activity.
That's clear, thanks.
I did, Matt, respond to you today, in regards to the couple of questions you had in regards to the pesticide-free park test pilot, what we're calling it. And Commissioner Root, in your comment about organic technology, I guess what I need to understand from the staff perspective of what that actually means. So there are a lot of conversations around this particular plank, but there's not in my direction for staff of how to proceed in that manner. Does that mean sports fields? Does it mean woodland areas? Does it mean those passive parks? Because there are a lot of facilities that there's no pesticides at all put down. There are facilities where it's just spot treatment, or it's just taking care of grubs. I know we don't want grubs, going through and just destroying, everything. But if you take a look at facilities like West Elm, there is no treatments happening there. At Crow Island, on the turf itself, that there's no real treatments there, and you can see kind of a stark contrast of the new sod that was put down versus the old, where you see more more weeds, non-treated areas in that part. But again, there's also different facilities like our sports fields that are treated for safety and playability of the users of those facilities. We do have woodland management areas and grub control and those types of things. So I guess it really comes down to what that conversation is from the community on what that looks like, because just the general conversation of everything is pesticide, herbicide free, or what that looks like, it's a little vague from staff's perspective right now of what that encompasses.
Happy to follow up with that.
Of course.
Made a concerted effort tonight to thank you for listening to the 60% of people who asked you to open Elder Lane, and we can talk about the rest. Anything else?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for coming tonight, Matt.
At this point, can we move on to the 2025 Winnetka Park District Comprehensive Master Plan?
So absolutely. So we are really excited to bring the draft comprehensive master plan to the board tonight. This has been nearly a year in the making and reflects a significant amount of work, not just from staff and the consulting team, but also from the community as well. You may remember that the board had a chance to review the engagement results back in March, and those voices, along with a lot of data and a lot of analysis, helped shape what you see in the draft that's being presented. This plan is meant to be a visionary roadmap. It's a big picture view of where the district wants to go over the next 10 years. And it's important to note it doesn't assign funding, agree to any specific recommendation or idea, or prioritize projects at this stage. Think of it as the route. We'll know the direction, but the strategic plan that comes next, that will serve as kind of the turn-by-turn navigation. That's where we'll define what happens first, how resources align, and how we track that progress over time. So what has been provided is also, it's still in draft form. So formatting and final layout will continue to be refined, and Barry Dunn will walk us through the plan And as we go through, I request that we be able to move into question and discussion once the presentation is complete to make sure that we don't miss anything along the way, if that works. Wonderful. Elsa, over to you.
Thank you, Shannon. President Gibson and Commissioners, thank you for making time for us tonight. It's good to see you in warm weather, unlike March 20th when we were here last to talk about engagement. As Shannon said, the plan is in a Word document, so it is going to change. Once you've agreed to the content and you've approved it, then it will be formatted in InDesign. It will have color and graphics and charts and pictures, and it will look very, very different than it looks now. So don't get caught up too much on the formatting because it's just a Word document for now. As a reminder, I'm Elsa Fisher. I'm the project manager. The rest of the team will introduce in just a minute. I'm going to go through our quick agenda. Where am I pointing to? Anywhere is fine. Anywhere is fine except it doesn't dance. Oh, for now? What? There you go. Oh, there we go. Okay, so we have a rather long agenda. I'm not going to go through it in detail, but we'll do some introductions. We'll talk about the plan purpose and then our project approach. And knowing that there's 2 new commissioners in the room, we just want to make sure that everybody's on the same page as we move forward. And then we're going to go through a high-level overview of all of the tasks that we completed that are in that 200-plus page report. We've changed, I did make a few changes in the slide deck today after we met this morning. I know there were some concerns about the word goals and committing you to that, so we've changed them to items for consideration for now so that you're still considering, it's still in draft form. So we'll go through the items for consideration and then we'll talk about next steps and then we'll move into the Q&A.
President Gibson and Commissioners, my name is Nikki Ginger and I'm a manager with Barry Dunn. Elsa and I have worked very closely with Shannon and her team on this wonderful project to really plan out the future for Winnetka Park District today. So Steve Conters and Laura Barnes from Hitchcock Design, Frank Parisi's here from Williams Architect, and then we have 3 members who are not here tonight. Kim Negro from Williams, Jason Murado from ETC. Jason participated virtually with you all back when we did the engagement in March, and Deshnee Mayed, who also participated with us virtually previously. So just to refresh your memory, because it's been a minute since you all did the RFP, so you probably don't remember, and then there's, as Elsa mentioned, there's 2 new commissioners. So the plan purpose, the whole reason that you set out to do this was to establish a forward-looking vision for Winnetka Park District that defines community priorities, identifies future needs, and then lays the groundwork for, like Shannon said, to develop that strategic plan. Importantly, though, it's also to help set you up for accreditation, both from the national organization and the state organization. And Shannon already touched on this, but I wanted to reiterate too, because comprehensive plan and strategic plan, this is what we do all of the time, but as a layperson, and when I used to be at the Chicago Park District, I remember thinking, what are these plans? What are they supposed to mean? So we thought a quick little reminder of the definition is that it's a long-term kind of playbook that guides the development, management, and enhancement of communities, parks, open spaces, and facilities. This is a roadmap for you all. This is what starts to guide you in what direction you want to go in. A comprehensive plan really is, it has some core components, but it's really customized to what your needs are. Based on your RFP, we had a demographics analysis, community engagement, and inventory of parks, facilities, and programs, and analysis of your financial health, your facilities, your parks, your programs. This is the first step. So this is not a commitment, this is just a step. This is just telling you what your current situation is and recommendations based on all of the communication that we've had, all the engagement that we've had with staff, with the community, with the board. And so it's really this foundation for you all to refer to.
All right, so project approach. Your project was divided into 6 phases. As a reminder, I think Shannon's memo to you with the board packet, we signed a contract in July last year, so we've been working on this for 11 months. So we started in discovery at the beginning, creating the work plan. We did the demographics report at that point to give us all a foundation of who lives in Winnetka, who your residents are.
So the first month or so was really just getting organized and getting ready for engagement. It takes time to create the project brand and to get the collateral printed. So the second phase was engagement. And in addition to all of the in-person engagement that Barry Dunn collected and the online tool that we use to gather feedback, there was also a statistically valid survey that Nikki mentioned that ETC conducted. So really important to remember that the statistically valid survey was sent to a random sample, and the results, the people who responded to the survey, matched the demographics of your community. That's really, really important to keep in mind. So the survey and the engagement each serve, the in-person engagement, each serve different purposes, but they're both important in this type of a planning effort. So then after we finished up with the engagement, then we moved into the analysis phase, and we're going to talk about all those components this evening. And then the fourth phase was visioning from our online tool. What did we learn from in-person engagement? And then what did Williams learn about facilities and Hitchcock learn about the parks and the beaches? And then Barry Dunn did a couple of pieces, the cost of service, the rec assessment, and we did a culture, staff culture retreat as well. So the visioning took all of those things into consideration. And then we discussed with your team, where are the gaps? What are the things that the district needs to do in the next 10 years to fill the gaps, to meet the needs of the people in your community based on the engagement that we heard. So that was phase 4, the visioning. We're now in the middle of phase 5, the finalization. You have the draft plan we're presenting tonight. At some point, you'll approve the plan. I'm not exactly sure if that's going to be tonight or another time, doesn't matter. But then when the plan is complete and it's laid out in nice, final, formatted InDesign, then at that point, we'll do an implementation workshop with the staff. So we have been meeting with your staff twice a month for 11 months, plus some additional workshops. Before we started each task, we talked to the staff. Here's what we're planning. Does this make sense? This is how we're going to go about this. And then when we were finished, we came back and said, this is what we learned. Does this make sense? Did we get everything right? And then staff could weigh in. So it was very much a collaborative process along the way. So the collaboration leads to what we're discussing tonight. So project timeline, we started back in September. Now it's almost July. We're in the draft plan and presentation, and we'll finish up in August or September, depending on timing. So with that, I am going to turn it over to Frank Precy from Williams.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for that introduction. So I'm Frank Precy. I'm one of the managing principals at Williams Architects, and I have the pleasure of starting out with the facility inventory and evaluation overall. So before we actually start, I wanted to always, Elsa and Nikki are talking about process. I want to get a little insight, and when we go look at facilities per se, how we looked at the facilities overall. There was a question which I would like to address as well. So our approach on looking at facilities is more twofold, right? Is a high-level architectural review of the facilities overall, and then supplementing that with information that is fed to us from obviously the staff as well, just so that we have that knowledge base overall when we look at facilities overall. So when we did that, we actually looked at all of your facilities together and came to the realization of a couple of things. Overall, obviously, most of your facilities are on this beautiful site overall, so that kind of impacted a couple of our thought processes. But the next thing that we had done, which gets tied into with looking at the facilities, is what Elsa's talking about. We talked about visioning as a group overall. I kind of alluded to a lot of this already with regards to looking at spaces and validating the need within the community, and then we'll elaborate on some of those ideas that we gathered together as a group as part of our visioning approach in moving to a strategic plan within the district overall. Thank you for that. I'm going to turn this over to Steve Elvara.
Hello, I'm Laura Barnes. I'm landscape architect at Hitchcock. I'll bring you through some of our park inventory and evaluation. So what we did was we actually did an evaluation of your park system. Actually went to each one of your parks and evaluated the inventory, what was there. both visual as well as documented the conditions of the park themselves. We documented in a updated matrix, worked with the Park District staff on quantities, both with your amenities, which could be anything from like site furnishings to recreational fields to sports fields to sports courts. And we come up with basically a running list of what you have in your parks. This is really helpful for both just keeping track of what you have, how old it is, because we also keep track of the age of that equipment, and that can be related to things in the future when you're trying to get funding. But it's really helpful to have in terms of documentation and keeping track of all that. So we also started with mapping and mapping out all the parks in the district. We mapped out as well as even like neighboring parks and things like that, so you can see but the border where it is right there. But that brought us to also park classifications, looking at your park systems as a whole, looking at what type of parks you have, working with the park district staff and coming up with actual classifications of each type of park. This helps us understand, is this a mini park? Is this a neighborhood park? Is this a community park? And these are actually classifications we start with as a basis from like NRPA. So these are classifications that can be seen and utilized throughout the country. And so we also modified or used some of those tools to create ones catered towards your actual district. So ones that are basically helps describe what kind of parks to level of service. So once you have everything classified, we can start to see a roadmap of your parks themselves and what type of amenities that you might actually need, because where your mapping is and where you actually have,
Yeah, the top button. Yep.
Sweet. What we like to do is we have planning areas for each park districts that we work with. Planning areas are determined by having natural barriers or physical barriers or roads or anything that separate different areas, so you can start looking at access or how easy it is to gain access to your parks from one place to the next. So let's say, for instance, there's one immediate adjacent parks are to those residents, and that also helps us see outside of your district what is immediately adjacent as well. Data and looking at it even further, we take benchmarks from NRPA, and they have specific recommendations for let's say the actual acreage, what's recommended per the population of your size of population. And you can see on the left here, they have a recommended benchmark for acreage per mini park. You have a total of 245, so that way exceeds what is recommended by the NRPA. And taking those maps even a step further, when it comes to your different classifications, there is a distance in which is recommended per the classification type. So mini parks typically are like a walk-to destination park. So you have a smaller spread of access. So those ones are going to be a quarter mile. So you can see on the map on the left here, these are the mini park distributions. So like all where you have your mini parks, like the Sheridan Station Park, and some of the overlaps, but you can see where there might be potential need for a mini park, because that would be the walk-to. But when you look at the neighborhood parks, and you can see the spread start to spread, because you would potentially drive there or walk to it. It has a half-mile radius, so that's the half mile to get to those parks, which is recommended by NRPA in terms of distance of distribution for those parks. And overall park distribution, you can see hardly any red is left. Like most of it is completely covered. And you can get more of these details obviously in the comp plan report. Going into the amenity needs, this is where we actually take those benchmarks from NRPA and also SCORP, which is a state comprehensive report. And we would take those, basically your amenities, and we can figure out from their population where there's a recommended amount per amenity type. And we compare it to SCORP, which is a statewide report, and that's one that's provided by the DNR. And so it's a report that comes out, and we can compare with your population size what the recommended amenity type is. And then we have here, for example, let's take for instance playgrounds. There's a recommended amount from SCORP, and there's the dash line right there, and you're exceeding the recommended amount for that amenity type. Park metrics is the one by NRPA, where we get that benchmark from. That one is a self-reporting report that we get that from. So that's from park districts that can report to like a survey. So it's not as, that's not the whole picture, but it gives us a really good roadmap to look at and compare to, because then we can actually go into that one and say, oh, your population is similar in size to these other populations in size. And we can compare their amenities quantities to your amenity quantities. And you can see where there might be a potential need or potential difference between other parks in the system.
That's what I was trying to say, sorry. All right, so another component that we did was a assessment of your recreation programs. And this, like the other components, we worked really closely with staff, had conversations with Shannon and Elisa about what kind of value can we best bring to you from a recreation program assessment. There are lots of different options, and in a very collaborative way, working with the team to really dissect the information. Now, we don't have every single component. That part is inside of the comp plan itself, but we thought we'd share a few of the highlights. So first and foremost, we have to say that looking at your data, you guys have a tremendous amount of programming. You're doing such a great job. There are over 36,000 touch points, which is pretty remarkable. Dissecting that a little bit, you have 36% of your enrollment is 32% of your enrollment is from tennis, followed by ice and sports, which are running even at 19%. So your enrollment is very high. When breaking down the enrollment, we also like to look at where exactly is that happening, what season. And so down in the lower left-hand corner, that breaks down by season. Not surprisingly, tennis, the highest amount of enrollment you see in spring, summer, and fall. But of course, with your wonderful tennis center, you also see it in the winter. On the upper right-hand corner, and sorry, that cuts off a little bit, is the age segmentation of enrollment based on program offering. Typical of any park district is that a majority of your programming is provided to youth. So the largest piece of the pie there, that 57%, that is for youth. And then offering based on your community served. We will always see this a little lopsided where the percent of the population in Winnetka specifically is almost 69% adult, where 31% is youth. Your programming is always going to be, or is typical to be more focused on youth, and which is, in your case, 80% of your programs are for youth, and then 19% of your programming is for adults. And then what we do is we have this life cycle distribution analysis. We work with staff to break down your programs into core areas. You can see those here at camps and ice, lakefront, platforms, special events, special interest sports, and tennis. And there's 4 different phases that we like to look at. Introductory, growth, mature, and decline. The majority of your programs should be, and they are in, the more growth and mature area. But that introductory phase, that's all stuff, that freshness. The decline stage, that might be that it's teetered out, it's someday pickleball might be there, who knows, that it'll teeter out and go into the decline stage where it might be things that you're thinking about no longer offering. On the right-hand side here, we'd like to look at your program registration. And so you can see here, this is all those dots there that represent your registration, and your participation is beyond Winnetka, not surprisingly. There's a draw in the region to come here, and obviously there's a very big concentration here of residents, but there's non-residents as well. Another tool that we like to use is called Placer AI, and this tool is used to help identify what type of visitors that you have coming in here, kind of that active versus passive park conversation that we were having earlier. We can see whether people are registered or not for a program based on mobility data, whether who's here and when they're here. So this data, we work with a third party. We get we have dashboards. We don't have any actual user data. It's all based on mobility. It's that location services option that you have on your phone that many of us ignore, and it provides data using. There's 30 million. Placer has access to 30 million mobile devices, which is pretty significant, and so, or the data from that mobile device, not the actual mobile device. And again, this is not anything that's individual specific. We don't know where people live or anything like that. So vegetation data. When we take that vegetation data, it's really interesting because now you can use this to see, okay, who exactly is here and when are they here? Based on this information, we didn't look at every single park, but we looked at a specific handful. So for instance, we can see that the top visitors and unique visitors were Hubbard Woods, Tower Road Beach, and the Ice Arena. We also look at the visitor frequency, where Dwyer Park has the same individuals visiting it more frequently than the other parks, same with Boyd Beach. Then we can look at the average duration, so how long are they here? And I know a question came up about Green Bay Trail. So when we looked at the Green Bay Trail, we said, we have to make sure, because of where it aligns to the metro station, we have to make sure that those commuters that are zooming through doesn't get counted, of course, and the zoomers literally on the train, or those that are just passing through. So when we pull this data, we look at it and intentionally we're very specific, working with Placer to create a very, very narrow GIS shapefile. And so that made sure that we were capturing that line, and then we're at that place for a minute or more. And then what that also brings, that also kind of averages out that 6 minutes. So you might have the cyclists that are going through relatively fast, and then you have and hopefully they're slowed down next to the metro, but then there's those that are there for a greater period of time. This at 4 p.m. is the highest draw during this time period. Now, what this is really helpful for is planning. So thinking about when you should be having maintenance, when you should have the greatest amount of staff, complement all the other pieces that we have. None of this is standalone. This is just one piece of the big puzzle.
Okay, so the last thing that we looked at were finances. So for the cost of service study, our analyst, Jesse, worked with Jim and collected your financial reports for the past several years. And in essence, we looked at revenue and expense, not taxes, things staff could control. So revenue and expense for all of your core service areas. And just to summarize, I know there's a lot of data in the report, but just to summarize, expenses are rising at a faster pace than revenue, and in Illinois, certainly the increase in minimum wage has impacted recreation programs pretty heavily, where we can't keep increasing fees to cover that cost. So there's lots of information in the report, and we can certainly go through questions and answers when we get to that point. So we're going to go through the items for consideration that were called goals earlier, but items for consideration as we work through the finalizing the plan. So again, when we had the visioning session and we talked through everything that we learned, we came up with these collaboratively, very collaboratively. So I'm going to pass the first section off. Oh, and these are divided into parks, facility, and long-term initiatives. So I'm going to pass this over to Lara to talk about the first one.
Hello again. So in talking about these, just to bring up where we get this information from, like Elsa had said earlier, we had a survey, we had the input sessions, community outreach, we met with you, we met with staff, we had park inventory where we actually saw things in person, the quality, the condition of the actual amenities, and also compared those amenities to benchmarking. So those are some of the key components that we got to this point for the visioning to take place, to see where we got these items for consideration. So one of the first ones that we bring up is improved beachfront parks. Now this is a hot topic item, and it's been in your forefront for, as well as even in the benchmarking, it was a need with the beachfront access as well, with whether it be docks or fishing piers as such. And that's where that comes from. The item number 2 is improved non-vehicular connectivity, and that's what that is in reference to is for like pedestrian access. That could be pathways, amenities for those pathways or the pedestrians. So that could be support amenities such as fitness stations or restrooms, things like that. So we're improving those type of access ways, whether it's even the signage or wayfinding, and looking at those non-vehicular connectivity activities. Item number 3, provide in-demand amenities. So that's in reference to those benchmarking, maybe what the community had said was a high priority item. That was an amenity, like maybe pickleball. That was high on the list that we heard from both in 3 different categories. Pickleball came up quite a bit. In benchmarking, I believe the diamond fields came up high just because of comparison to other similar sized communities in the benchmarking. And then item number 4 would be replace amenities beyond their useful life and or poor condition, maintain current assets. Capital replacement, this has to do with just date. That one's pretty self-explanatory. The item number 5, maintain and improve upon park aesthetics and natural areas. So that has to do with not just the parks themselves, but the park. Item number 6 is improve park access for underserved areas. That touches on some of the planning areas that we discussed earlier, and just having access, because planning area 1 was most of the park district, planning area 2 is that smaller area over there. Because of that separation and the mapping, it showed like there might have been a potential need for a larger community park because of access, but that doesn't mean that they don't have access immediately adjacent in another park district. But we're just bringing up where those needs might be addressed in terms of marketing or other ways to address those needs, to address that concern. Item number 7 is enabling park development and improvement procedures. This has to do with challenges when it comes to parks and improvements. And if they're zoned in a specific way, it might be challenging for those improvements to take place. Say, for instance, if it's something is zoned residential, sometimes when parks go up for renovations, challenges can occur where it might be challenging on getting things met because it's like a recreational facility versus a house. So looking at the park system as a whole in terms of zoning and parks in that light. Passing it off to Frank.
Okay, so we'll transition over to facilities. So one of the things that we realized, once we realized from the survey and everything else, there's a big community need for programmable space, right? And when we started looking at that, we started looking at, okay, where do I put the opportunity for programmable space? And of course, a couple of things that came up, obviously, was need for program space, need for gymnasium space, and aquatics came up in the surveys, right, overall. So one of the things here we actually targeted are different objectives, which kind of leads us back to this main campus, because this is your prime facility in the district. So our recommendation or an item to consider for number 8 is the careful planning of this particular site as a master plan overall. We always talked about a roadmap. The comprehensive plan starts with that roadmap, and then of course if you're doing improvements to this project, no different than that. If you're doing a master plan, that would lead any improvements to this particular property in that same vein overall as creating a roadmap. So that would be something to consider as number item 8. Of course, each one of these also takes into consideration operational types of issues like collaborative spaces for staff as well. But of course, if you look at all of these details, it all ties to all the facilities that are on this property. Laura already alluded to consider space for pickleball as well, so that would be something. Reimagine indoor tennis galleries. Look at what happens to the ice arena, which all is really pretty much tied to this entire property in its entirety. The next objective on there, which we mentioned, was with regards to aquatics, right? Look at it from a feasibility study perspective to see if that's feasible, whether it actually happens on this property as an opportunity, or it actually happens on a different property that is not available to the Park District at this time, or is there a different way to achieve this particular need that's been stated by the community with some sort of partnering aspect with regards to the pool aspect overall. Next item, which is pretty typical with any type of district that has an aging infrastructure, right, is to always stay current to your ADA transition plan, which the Park District does have in place. We're recommending to consider updating that plan. It's about 10 years old. The code has changed over that time, and kind of keep yourself abreast to that particular transition plan in place. This one is a very long statement, right? Overall, it has to do with the golf facility, but only particularly focused to the actual clubhouse itself. Of course, the district recently did a renovation to the actual course. So when we went there, we looked at some opportunities, potential opportunities for underutilized space that would help with programming. But understanding, as Commissioner Seaman said before, that is a golf enterprise that's been in works for a number of months. We probably want to test that through and look at the financial sustainability there before you start exploring the golf support operations or programming there as well. Next strategy, which I think Elsa and Nikki actually referred to it. Of course, when we talk about master plans and feasibility studies, those are long-term goals to actually work with. So we wanted to put a strategy in place where we start looking at a possible short-term goal.
Evaluate program administration. So consider the usability of the current registration system and how to enhance the user experience. Continue to use the registration data to make more informed decisions. Investigate and work to reduce program cancellations. Research enrollee residency to better understand residency by program type and assess results for gaps and opportunities, and strive to balance distribution across the life cycle stages within each program category. Another item is enhancing programming. So enhancing alternative staffing and space options to extend the full day traditional camp season to include days in between school and summer camp. Work to include adult programming into the annual menu of offerings. Consider programming that helps meet homeschooling community needs to expand service. Continue to monitor areas where enrollment is declining and identify the root cause. Continue to work toward reducing the summer camp wait list as facility space allows. And work to secure additional programming space, as Frank had mentioned. And last within this section is evaluation of the need for additional recreational staff support. Continue to reevaluate IT support, revisit the program evaluation process, and then investigate new avenues for staff and instructor recruitment in high demand program areas.
Okay, so I got a little ahead of myself. Okay, so this is related to cost recovery, the study that Jesse did. So monitor and assess the cost recovery rate and address projections. So review and update policies regarding revenues and fees as needed to align with your direction, explore ways to reduce non-personnel expenditures to make more efficient use of resources, monitor local indicators related to recreation services demands and trends. So this could be things like minimum wage increases, and then review and assess the current reserve balances to help ensure sufficient funds are available to support both short-term and long-term financial goals, including funding for capital projects. So then the last item, item 17, foster a collaborative and trust-building board culture. So we discussed this as you have a new board president and a new board member, and what are the ways that you can do to build the board. So enhance communication, revise the ethical guidelines, provide ongoing opportunities for conflict resolution and mentorship, and ensure effective decision-making despite differing opinions. And I said that was the last one, but I know it's not. So following the approval of the final comp plan, starting to update the district's strategic plan, create the short, mid, and long-term goals, assign champions to each task who can oversee completion, and then track and share results not only internally and with you, but out to the public as well. So next steps, so after you agree to the content and you approve that, then we will design it in InDesign. I've mentioned that a couple of times. We'll have that report for you at some point in August. And then when that is done, we'll do an implementation workshop for staff because
full set of the response data and the engagement data. How, and I know it's more of an art than a science, but how did you map this data to these objectives? Because there was a lot of data to massage into some objectives.
Yes, that's a good question. So when we prepared for the visioning sessions, which we did 3 of them, we did one on parks, one on facilities, and one on programming, we had a slide deck that included all the survey results related to parks, all the engagement results related to parks, and then all of Hitchcock's work related to parks, the information from Social Pinpoint. So we went through all of those data points, and then we opened it up for discussion, and we talked about, okay, we know that people want more access to Elder Lane, for example, an initiative or a strategy or a recommendation or an item. So it was looking at everything that we learned, all the data points, and then having a conversation. And staff, their expertise with maintaining parks or facilities or programs that played into it as well. So, you can't see it from your seat. It happened, but it's hard to describe.
Beginning, when you talked about the SCORP and the park metrics and the Winnetka Park District, just that one slide where you look at whether we are mapped above, below, or to those standards, where the park metrics would be comparable entities, comparable size that self-report. The SCORP would be the industry standard report. The SCORP would be the industry standards, and then the WPD would be our assets. What conclusions do you draw about, to the question that came from public comment, passive versus active parks? Do we have enough? Do we not have enough? Do we have more than enough? Can you make a conclusion from this data?
So most of these entities are there for active recreation.
Right, that's what I noticed.
Right. So in the matrix, we do outline the different park classifications. So all the parks in the matrix, which is
right.
I know it's small, but you do have like this main park matrix. All of the parks are all your parks are in here, and they're classified by the different park type. And in that, some of the parks are like green spaces. So we outline like the acreage that's in there. And then when you go back to the benchmarking, whether it's sports courts, facilities, day use facilities, there's a whole level of this that, we couldn't put it on the screen, but it does outline other activities, and we can compare it those activities to the National Recreation Parks Association as well as the statewide.
Because these are also active uses.
Right.
So my question would be, is there a passive use
use?
analysis benchmarked against some standard? We're better, we're worse, we're close, we're...
You're Steve.
Yeah, I can help clarify a little bit. Excuse me. So as far as looking at passive space, that's probably mostly looking at just the amount of open space you have. And so those initial pie chart graphs that we looked at, where we compared your acreage per population to sort of the national standards, you guys were well above the amount of acreage per population when looking at all of your park systems inclusively, not just the active parks, but also your passive parks. Right. So your active parks alone were right at the benchmark. When you add all your passive parks, you're well over. So this is the one area that we're probably talking about looking at passive and active parks is mostly an acreage benchmark, acreage per population. Okay. The amenity benchmark.
So we're at the benchmark for activities and we're above the benchmark for acreage.
Yes.
Which, okay.
For activity, each activity is a little bit different. Like some of them are above the benchmark, some are below. Okay. But the only other thing I'd point out too is that these are, as was sort of mentioned throughout the process, these are singular data points. Right. So we don't try to draw any conclusions from any of these individually. We want to take this information and compare it to the community engagement information, the survey information, staff workshops, and all of that together is taken collectively to understand what the needs might really be. We try not to make needs from individual data points on their own.
Gotcha. Okay, that's helpful. Thank you very much.
Given that Winnetka is an older landlocked community, it's a good position to be in to have excess land because there's not a lot of opportunity to receive new open space or new donations.
Correct.
Right.
Okay. I'm done.
Do any other commissioners have questions or comments?
I'll go. So we had one comment during public comment about the board approves this plan, blah, blah, blah. But I want to be really clear here that what is in here, your areas for further discussion or whatever we're calling it, from engagement with the community, meetings with staff, and your expertise. How long has Barry and Dunn been doing what you're doing? How long?
Well, Barry Dunn's been around for 50 years. I've only been consulting for 5, but I've been in Parks and Rec for 40.
Okay.
So,
Is it fair to say you guys know what you're doing?
yes.
Okay, so we've got an expert in doing this type of work that this board has hired. We've had very little, really, board influence on, like, you haven't talked to the board effectively other than
We did
in the
one
meetings.
right, at the very beginning, correct.
Right, did some one-on-ones earlier this week just to look at this, but this is not a board document. This is a community engagement document, staff document with your expertise and experience.
Correct.
Okay.
It also, I would clarify, it also includes input from, during the engagement process, it included conversations with board members, with stakeholders, which included the village, the library district, the school district, community house, everybody that could forest preserve, to get input from all of those entities as well.
Fantastic. So, and this is also, to put it plainly, I guess I look at this document because obviously there's a lot of discussion, emails, board member to ED, that the strategic plan is, I believe, the most important plan. That's where we're going to take from this and create a more actionable, prioritized plan. Is that a fair description?
Yes, that's a fair description. And then your annual budget process every year will fund whatever you're putting in the strategic plan. So you're gonna have, all gonna work together to make the strategic plan a reality.
So, and then I would just say, you know what, there's a lot of great information for it.
Thank you.
There really is. I didn't know that you could, I'm surprised how many people go to Tower Road Beach. I'm surprised at how many people go to Lloyd. We have heard throughout this terrible process around Elder Centennial, beaches are never crowded. No one goes to the beaches. Not according to this data. People go to our beaches. Obviously, Elder Centennial, I don't know if that's in this, that's effectively been shut down, Elder certainly for a few years, but people go to our beaches. So it is consistent with the fact that our beaches show up as the top priority or top item for further discussion. So I would just say thank you so much for all the time, effort, expertise, conversations, a lot of really great information.
Thank you.
So thank you.
Jeff?
So thank you, first of all, for the opportunity to ask questions before we came tonight. I had an opportunity to submit a number of questions through our executive director. I got very quick and very precise responses to those, so thank you very much. However, I did think of another question since then. And it came up tonight, and it's kind of bridging off what David already brought up, the visitation analysis slide, which includes a selection of parks. Real simple question, do we have that data for all of our parks and you just chose to show on the slide specific ones? Or do we only have data for the parks on the slides?
Only have data for the parks that were identified. So we can pull that, but we have a set number that we usually set when we talk about scope. So we didn't do all of the parks, it certainly can be done, and frankly, you can purchase the tool to have this data readily available to yourselves to be able to pull the data. So that's something that some districts are doing. They're purchasing their own subscription to Placer AI. Yeah.
Thank you.
And actually, villages, the whole, so that it can be used across the community.
Excellent, thank you.
Sure.
We tended, when we had the option of like, okay, well, which locations do you want to pull? Which ones do you want to get data on? We strategically looked at, okay, what were the locations that we wanted the most data on. So in comparison, I would rather get information on who's coming to the beaches more than who's going to Bellwoods. So looking at that information, what was going to be the most bang for our buck for that particular process is how we kind of looked at those locations to look at. But I agree that Placer AI is a great tool for that information across the board and for further discussion later.
Yeah.
Cynthia, did you have some questions?
Hours and hours of questions. I had a few questions. For the reference to page 135 with the inventory, that very small chart, I just wanted to note that I've been unable to read that in any of the formats that I have. So I don't know if you can just walk us through.
There's a way to do it as 11 by 17, or we need to do some enlargements. So if we need to adjust the legibility of it for hard copy, we can figure out how to do that. To explain what this is, just real quickly, along the left-hand column are the names of all your parks and by classification that Laura talked about. So talks about whether they're mini, neighborhood, community, special use, or some other type of park. So the left-hand column is all the classifications and the park names. Then as you go over the next couple of columns are the acreages, and that's broken down by what you own and what you lease and manage. So then the next, and all the remainder of and this is why this is such a large chart, all the remainder of the columns are all the various types of amenities that you might have in your parks. The sport courts, the fields, the picnic shelters, the playgrounds, all those items. Because there are so many to categorize an inventory, that's what makes this chart so large. But aside from its readability and legibility from the size, this is basically the data set of all the park information. So when we talk about doing the benchmarking, this is what we go back to. How much acreage did we inventory? How many amenities did we inventory? So this becomes the database of all the benchmarking going forward.
So in the report, like, it looked like there were 4 playgrounds that were beyond useful life. Like, where would we find what those 4 are? Is that somewhere in this chart that I couldn't read? Or
Yes,
is it
yeah,
somewhere else?
so basically this chart specifically, you would just follow the park name, and if you follow the row of park name, it's gonna tell you each amenity in those rows that are associated with that particular park. If there's an item in that park that's beyond a useful life benchmark, it's a useful life benchmark that the state establishes. Doesn't necessarily mean that it's no longer good, it's just a useful life benchmark. But if it's in red, that means that particular item is beyond the state's useful life benchmark. So in other words, if you have a playground that's 20 years old, it might still be in good condition, but it might be beyond the useful life benchmark, so it would be noted as red.
Okay, so I am eager to see that sheet because it sounds like there's lots of good information, so hopefully we can figure out a way to.
So what I would
share
say,
it out.
especially for the public's knowledge, if you're undiligent and your out button on the left top of the screen, that you can zoom in and out of that to see it a little bit better. But in regards to actual playgrounds, the items, let me put my glasses on. The items for playground include Elder Lane, Glencoe Park, let's see, Indian Hill, and Tower Road.
Okay, so we have 2 targeted for replacement.
Correct.
In the next 1 to 2 years.
Yes,
so.
correct.
Okay.
Yes, yes.
Okay, then on the park acreage, is that, where we exceed MPRA, is that data, like, including cities, like, is it similarly situated community, like suburban communities, or is it just national, all types of communities rolled into one?
The benchmark itself?
Yes.
So the benchmark is, the benchmark that NRPA has set for us to look against for your community is basically 10 acres per 1,000, 10 acres of parkland per 1,000 population. That's the benchmark that they set, and that's a national benchmark.
Okay, so it's not segmented for suburban versus urban?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Then in the recreation assessment, we didn't talk about it, but definitely it seemed to be a pretty significant gap that there was not data from golf or the affiliate groups. And there was not as strong a recommendation in the items to consider in terms of getting that data, but obviously, those are huge parts of our recreation services. like the football program serves 700 or 800 Winnetka residents and 1,500 kids in total. So, and then golf, have a new course. So how, what are your recommendations on closing that gap, and how should we be looking at that? And what impact do you think it has on, when we look at our enrollment-based program distribution?
Or actual, I'm not exactly certain, but we did not study the affiliate groups. You certainly could, we did not.
So ICE, just to be clear.
This is registration.
It's registration for the lessons. It's
Correct.
registration for the kids doing the ice show, who are participating in a program, and it's not hockey, anything beyond the introductory classes.
Correct.
Okay, even though they account for a very significant portion, the affiliates of our facility usage.
Sure. And we noted them in the report. We just didn't study the numbers.
Okay. So not even on it's not even possible to look at like on an hour basis because those organizations know.
We were able to pull the information that we have in our registration system. So we have the data that we have in RecTrack, which is the programming software that we use to do those counts. So that's how we currently have that data collected. And there is a gap in that data that's collected because we don't have the data from the groups that we contract with, or that are affiliates, or that are renters of space. So we don't have that data in particular in our system to pull from. And we've noted that, and that has been noted in the plan as a gap to look at how to how to capture the information and to make sure that we're still servicing appropriately. And that's in the programming items to look at, I believe.
I didn't see, can you just go back to number 13? Okay,
So research enrollee residency.
out the data gathering for these programs for which we had no information because they are an important part of our portfolio.
I think we'll need them for the strategic plan.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. Okay, great. Let's
We're
put 'em in.
undercounting participants. Vastly.
This is about data. This is about updating, if it's feasible, our data collection. And as Shannon said, we don't get a view of the sub doc effectively. We don't get to look through and see their data. But you're a data person.
Yeah, no, I think it should be in the items for consideration explicitly called out.
Yeah, this is updating our data collection.
Okay, going on to some other items. For items for consideration number 7, for the zoning, can you talk through your supporting data points on that?
So this was mostly a conversation between the planning team and staff. There wasn't any information necessarily coming from the community about this, but it's also us bringing forward what we see in other communities. So there are many other communities that we do work with, and where those park districts do work with the municipalities to prepare specific zoning for parks and open space, which does help sort of move forward so that as you're doing maintenance, redevelopment, renovation against an ordinance that's built for parks and open space versus residential, it can make that process a little bit more efficient. And so because we know that that practice is out there and exists and it could assist you within this community, that's why it came forward as an item here.
Okay, so it was not resident driven, because when I look around at our park district, we're certainly experiencing current challenges with one particular product, but when I look overall at our facilities, I mean, we're sitting in a facility that was built under a special use. We're looking out the window at a facility that was built successfully under a special use with, I'd say, fairly little drama. Our maintenance building was built under a special use. Our elderly beach house was built, like everything that we have has gone through this process. So it concerned me a little bit that it was not as resident driven, because when I look at our process, I see, okay, this is a process that is more geared toward protecting residents because we are so landlocked. So that might be an area for further consideration, but it's at least a question in my mind whether it's an item for consideration meriting its own category in this plan. So,
Commissioner Rapp, if I could make a comment on that?
Yeah.
I would love to. So that particular item, it was something that came to mind from my perspective in talking to a lot of folks, and the average resident doesn't, I would say, care about the zone that or know what zone any particular project is a part of. They just say, get done what I want to get done. And so looking at it from the conversations of what do we need to do to go through and work on the paddle hut, or do different items with the cart barn, or whether it's scoreboards or turf fields or whatever the case may be, it comes down to what the process is and what the community understands or needs to understand about what that process entails. From our perspective, I think that the park district is held to the standards of why do things take so long, and its process. And there are multiple processes that go into that. Now, is there and should there be, zoning oversight from the village? Absolutely, that's their right. That's what their purview to be able to do, is to provide that zoning structure. Having park land, I wouldn't even just say park district, but having park land that zone residential is not the standard nationally or even in the state. There are a few here and there, and we are one of them. And it's typically older park districts, and we are one of them.
Yeah, no, we are.
One of the super old ones. I mean, when we get the award at IAPD for 120 years of being a park district, so it was one of those things that, came up as that conversation of what can we do to make it make our projects more impactful for the community in a way that they are able to get the things accomplished the way that the community wants to get those things accomplished. And understanding, yes, there's one project that is kind of the issue currently in conversation, and that's fine. But across the board, there's still a lot of input and staff time and dollars and extra that goes into all the little things, even if it is a complete sweep of approval with any of the other elected bodies, that it's still time and it's still money and it's still process that takes away that authority from the park board as has been elected by the community. So that's where that came from.
Okay, no, I mean, I certainly then look forward to further discussions, because I know when we're evaluating our plan, we're not looking at parking, we're not looking at lighting in the same way, we're not looking at intensity of use in the same way. So that one raised questions for me. The other one was item 11 regarding golf, that I just want to flag, because that golf sounded like in the resident survey, the statistically valid survey, that people were happy with the golf facilities. And so I guess, I read this, and the strategy must be considered after 2 years of financial performance. I mean, from my perspective, I would consider in that financial performance, payback of the very large taxpayer subsidy that was pushed over to golf before we make additional investments in clubhouse and renovations and other things, because we transferred a ton of money over. And to me, I feel like that's a good part of the discussion before we talk about, let's put in more. Particularly since the more benefits a private entity. So I just want to say where I am on some of these. We already talked about data gathering. For number 14 regarding enhancement of programs, this is possibly more for the strategic plan, but I want it thrown out there in terms of enhanced programming, just as a reminder for the public and also our consultants, that Winnetka, has invested $58 million in school renovations, which include bringing a new gym that we have not previously had access to at all as a park district for after-school programming or outside of school hour programming online. And so, we are all, I'd say, well, I'm certainly eagerly awaiting to see what that looks like and how we're going to use that space, because that is a completely untapped potential. So when we're looking at enhancing program and space needs, I am very optimistic that we will be able to utilize that space in the community that we've invested a lot of money in.
Yeah.
And we already have an IGA that covers our use of that facility, so.
The 58 million you're talking about is the referendum for the schools?
Yes.
Yes, perfect, just to be clear.
Yeah. And then lastly, on the cost recovery, I spent a significant amount of time discussing this, so other commissioners know, with President Cotto and Executive Director Nazal. And I did look at the spreadsheet, and I just think from my perspective, it kind of masks the taxpayer gift that we get every year in terms of our tax revenues by not breaking out the different categories, because some categories in recreation we seek to do cost recovery, some we seek to make a little bit of money on, like camp, but some are, you know, services to the community and, you know, special events, mowing passive parks that are not revenue generating. And I feel like with the cost of service, this, you know, fee increase and we need to cost recover on everything. No, we don't, because that's why we get the taxpayer dollars. And I think by kind of grouping it all in one, recreational in one category, and not, you know, segmenting out the things that are, you know, completely public, tier 1, and then the tier 2 and tier 3 services, it kind of just creates a little bit of a, you know, increased focus on we need to raise rates and we need to cost recover everything. And it doesn't fully, in my opinion, account for the money that we're getting from our taxpayers to provide these public services, because they are public services.
Right.
So anyway,
So-
that's all I have. See, it wasn't that long.
That's pretty good.
There are two ways we differentiate in pricing that I just want to be clear everyone understands. Obviously, there's the resident, non-resident, and then there's the A, B, and C pricing tiering that everybody should know. The A is the very, we want to be competitive, but we also don't need to make that much margin. The B is we need to make margin because we can, or it keeps us competitive with the landscape. And then the C is highly used by non-residents and really quite a specialty amenity, or a very expensive amenity, or an experimental amenity, or the market supports it. So there's tiers of pricing, and then there's resident
fund that covers. So that would be, you know, whether it's athletics and special events and camps and those types of things that are in that particular department. And Jim is definitely more versed in all of the different funds and accounts and all of that particular item. So ice is on its own, paddles on its own, tennis on its own, all of those. So those are easier to understand with that particular cost of recovery. But recreation, because there are so many, that you have your free special events that are offset by, you know, other recreation programs and those types of things. You know, we have revenues that come in for, you know, for rentals and, you know, birthday parties and those types of things. So those are all encompassed in that recreation part. So there are some that do have cost recovery, some are no cost recovery, but to clarify, it doesn't include the parks and maintenance side of things, which is complete tax dollar based. Yes.
So they're not allocated back like they are when we do our budget by the accounts?
So only the recreation portion of that is allocated back. So there's a percentage, and Jim can talk more about
Okay,
it.
during the budget. I'm fine to defer to during the budget, but definitely, like, I just feel like the
Can I say
cost
this,
of
in the sub-funds of recreation, you will see a transfer from the main fund
Yeah.
to make that a zero business.
Yeah, no, I know.
That's how it, so that's a tech, and you're right, there's no.
It doesn't come through in that cost of service.
Right, that cost of service, it's not applicable to
how we do
Merrill Park, Elm Park, right? I mean, it's just, it's not, but it is applicable to our enterprise businesses as well as the businesses that we, the revenue generating businesses that occur on Skokie Playfield.
Thank you.
want to ask Commissioner Root if she has anything, any questions that she would like to ask.
Hi, did I hear my name? I'm sorry,
Yes.
the audio is not good. So did someone speak up? I didn't quite hear the question.
Yes, Commissioner Root, President Gibson asked if you had any comments.
Thank you, President Gibson. I have some questions. First of all, I want to acknowledge the significant amount of work that's gone into this plan. But one of my questions was, what does it mean to maximize land value? And with respect to that phrase, what I didn't see, and it may be that I just missed it, was I didn't see anything, because this is a visionary plan, I did not see anything discussing environmental sustainability. The draft certainly referenced broad principles of environmental stewardship, but have I, again, as this is visionary, where in this plan do we talk about any sort of standards or accountability mechanisms with respect to like green infrastructure, native planning, habitat restoration? Did I miss it?
I don't believe you've missed it. I am under the impression that you have policies for some sustainability issues, for some, we reference continuing following your policies with sustainability and native plantings. Are you asking for a specific section that talks about? I mean,
I'm really asking our consultants, because as I look at other comprehensive plans, and specifically I'll use Highland Park as an example, they have whole sections that talk not only about environmental sustainability, but they also talk about the protection of passive land, and even suggest criteria to guide future development away from passive and ecologically sensitive areas.
okay.
I'm somewhat curious as to why, particularly because I saw comments from our public where there's been a huge focus on this, at least in the workshop at the community house. People were talking about this and putting stickies everywhere. So I'm just kind of curious as to why this hasn't been enveloped and brought in as a section to this visionary document.
Yeah, I understand your question. So from my perspective, when I saw your question to Shannon last week, and I went back through the RFP, I believe that Highland Park's RFP had a specific section asking for sustainability. And I know I'm working on a project with Hitchcock now where the RFP requested a natural resource management plan. Yours did not. We know that open space is important, and that's been addressed. We know that people value it here. I mean, there may not be a section on it, but we weren't asked to address it specifically in the RFP. We certainly could have, but that wasn't a section, that wasn't a request. Does that make sense?
I think perhaps we may have overlooked some very important issues, particularly when we are looking at this as a futurist visionary document. I guess my concern is that if these issues are not identified within the plan, it would be my hope that as we move forward, we would not look at this plan as being static and carved in granite, and that we can incorporate these concepts perhaps as part of the strategic plan or in another fashion.
Yeah, and many agencies, when they do create that strategic plan, there's often an entire theme on sustainability, and that may end up being the case here. I don't know what the direction will be, but certainly that's becoming more and more common to have it be a theme that you address throughout all areas of your operations.
This is,
Thank you for that comment.
This is Shannon, and I think that's absolutely a feasible request to look at it in the strategic plan as far as sustainability efforts. So I don't think that's a concern at all to make sure that we address it in the in prioritizations during the strategic planning process.
Well, this commissioner would highly recommend that we not only include sustainability, but we also look at how we protect our open and passive spaces from what we know is an increasing demand for growing development. So thank you. And then if I may, I'll make one other comment, and that deals with institutional zoning districts. Executive Director, you made a statement this evening that the majority of the public are not at all concerned about that. And I would like to suggest that it became a highly public issue during the Village of Winnetka 2040 plan, to the point that you had multiple members of the public who came and spoke about why they wanted the village to have final zoning oversight. And with respect to the one project that you mentioned that has been such a challenge for this district, a large segment of the community surrounding that project is very, very concerned that their residential area not be commercialized. So I think you will find that there is great public interest in that particular issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Is, Scott, do you have any comments, questions? No? I think that wraps up the commissioner questions for Barry Dunn. I actually don't, because I sat in a long meeting and had questions. Oh, do you have more?
Well, I just wanted to ask a question, just clarifying the process.
Okay.
Because Elsa seemed to suggest that we don't need to approve this tonight. Are you planning to address that?
Yes.
Okay, and then I can ask the question after you say what you're going to say?
Yes.
Okay, I'll do that.
All right, so what I'd like to do is, I'm sorry, I'm kind of losing my spot. I would like to have a motion to direct staff to allow additional comments on the master plan, on the comprehensive master plan through July 11th for consideration, and then to bring back a final review at the July 24, 2025 meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
Discussion?
I thought that in the opening that it was stated that we would be approving it at the August meeting.
The final, I believe, is in the August meeting, but this is where we're trying to get it into, where everyone's comments and questions have been considered.
Okay, so
there have just been several commissioners who feel like they need extra time, and we've heard from Ms. Garrison that, she feels like the public has not been afforded enough time with 2 days, which is true, so.
So the July 11th date is for commissioners to give further comments?
And public.
And public in writing, I guess, since we don't have a meeting for
Yes, it
public.
most likely would have to be in writing. Yep.
Yep, that's feasible. We can collect comments through July 11th. We can go through those. I wouldn't be able to say what comments or suggestions would be included. But we can absolutely take all comments into consideration. As we have with some of the board member comments that have come in, and that we've looked at some of those changes already.
Correct.
To be able to make those updates in regards to some of the things that we've already talked about.
Okay.
We did a community survey. This is where the board, I agree, this is outside of hiring the executive director, this is the most important thing we do. Comprehensive Plan Strategic Fund, that's it. That's the most important thing we do as a board.
Correct.
We went out to the community, we paid Barry and Dunn probably a fair amount of dough. They come back with an excellent document. Yes, we always take community comment, but it's not going to be necessarily input into the model that Barry and Dunn has spit out in this report.
Correct.
So I'm a little concerned that we'll get a form letter from 500 people that
Well,
says, hey,
I'm concerned about that as well.
redo the comprehensive master plan because we didn't get it. I think that's a terrible idea. We got a lot of community feedback. Staff are experts, right? Staff is experts. Shannon's
To be a 95% refined product.
Yes.
right.
Okay,
Without
Yes.
formatting.
correct.
Right,
Without
the formatting is done
Got
at
it.
the very last point.
That comes in August.
Perfect.
So,
Potentially, depending on depending on the comment, so, and Elsa and Nikki could probably weigh in more on the actual process timeline of how long that particular process takes. Because doing the InDesign work, it's not just the first round of the graphic designer doing the work, but then it comes back to us as staff to review to make sure we're good with all the pictures and everything else to make it pretty. And then the board will see it and we'll go through that again as far as, through that again as far as, okay, well, I don't like how I don't like how my hair looked in that picture, whatever the case may be. So, because that's just the formatting of that, making sure that all the I's are dotted, the T's are crossed, the grammar's good, all the page numbers match, those types of things. So that's pretty administrative from that perspective, but there is time that needs to occur in. So if we have the final draft review and board is good, let's move forward, it might be into the September meeting when that final document is presented for the board and the public for final approval. And so any time that we have between now and then, it's the hope that as many of the comments and any of the changes, like, okay, well, we need to add an item for consideration here or whatever that looks like, the sooner the better, so we can still work through this, because we also have a strategic plan that we have to work on too, which is more in line of the looking at the prioritizations and all of that sort of thing. So we have all the data, we have the vision, and then staff is looking at the strategic plan internally once we get through this part, to go forward with that. I would have loved to be able to get that to the public this calendar year.
Yes.
As we take longer on the comprehensive master plan, that then further delays, yeah. So just for FYI, as it doesn't, we can do and go whichever direction that the board feels the most appropriate, but knowing that those timelines
shift.
Yes.
Right. Well, I think that, the motion is for additional comments from commissioners, because there were several commissioners that said that they felt like they needed more time.
Right.
But I also feel like it's important for the public to have time to digest that document, because we know it took us several days. So, yeah.
Any additional discussion? Yeah.
Just, like, there have been, I know from my discussions, from our discussion here as a board, some items that we have said, oh, we'll cover that in the strategic plan. Is it possible to assemble a parking lot list of the things that we will cover in the strategic plan? Because I think that will help clarify what things we need to make motions for and adjust in this plan versus what we feel will be covered in the strategic plan.
Yes. Like sustainability, like Commissioner was saying, yeah, we should.
So I think that might help.
Okay.
I would caution that it would not be all-encompassing, and I wouldn't want it to be considered a draft of a strategic plan.
Well, the strategic plan has a life of its own,
Sure.
correct?
Yes.
So we'll have a list of things that we've pinned here that we'll take to that process and include in that process. And it's not gonna be necessarily a complete list, but it'll be some of the things that we've discussed here tonight. Okay.
Can I have a roll call vote on extending the comment period?
Hold on.
Sorry,
Hold on.
Colleen.
Colleen?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Again, I understand that there is a desire to expedite this process, but I just wondered, again, we have been criticized as a district by not being transparent. And so I think that your suggestion for your motion to give extra time for the public to at least see this if they care to, and they may not, realize that the public first had the opportunity to lay eyes on this on Tuesday evening. And so I really, I want to support your motion because I think it is a fine idea, and I'd go a step further and suggest that perhaps the district send out a global email to advise the public that this plan is available for them to review and put it on the park website. I think being inclusive is always a very good idea. Thank you.
We can do that.
Yeah. That can be done, Commissioner Root. All right, can we do a roll call vote?
I'm sorry, what's the motion now?
That we will allow additional comments by commissioners through July 11th on the plan, and then we'll bring it back for final draft review on the 24th, on our meeting on the 24th of July.
Commissioner Root,
Yes.
Commissioner Seaman,
Yes.
Commissioner Tyson,
Yes.
Commissioner Gibson,
Yes.
Commissioner Kodo,
Yes.
Commissioner Corley,
Yes.
Commissioner Rapp.
Yes.
All right. I think that concludes the discussion for Barry Dunn. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank
Happy
you.
4th, everybody.
You too. And now we will move on to an update from Mr. Costa on the Elder Lane and Centennial Park and Beach project.
Thank you. Just give a brief update here to support the memo that went into the board packet. As staff or the public is aware and the board is aware as well, the Park District staff and the consultants who are working on and have been working on the special use permit for Centennial Park did present to the Plan Commission on the evening of May 28th. At that time, through the presentation, discussion, and review, the Plan Commission did suggest denial of the special use permit and exemptions as requested by the applicant for the trustees not to move the plan forward. That was their recommendation. Post that meeting, staff has been working with consultants in regards to the next phase in that process, which is the design review board as instructed previously by the park board. So we are working through that process. It is a timely process because we are trying to get all the materials together for that presentation. So that's the next step in the process for that special use permit. I would like to identify a few other things through the update for the Elder Centennial Plan. One of the things that was required and discussed was the cleanup efforts for Centennial. Or it's Elder and Centennial. I'm not going to go into much discussion on that item because it is a item under new business under 6.1, so we'll go further consideration there, as well as the easement agreement, or in this case, an access license agreement identified as item 6.2 under new business. What I'd like to further, though, and discuss a little bit more is what the board, in this case the village trustees, adopted, which is the replacement of the section of pipe underneath Elder Lane here. So that work was awarded to DeMayo Brothers. So that work is going to be contingent on us completing our work that I just mentioned previously. We will work with the village public works staff to identify the best construction sequencing if the application, or in this case the bid for the cleanup work, does get approved. Our goal would be to minimize the impact on the facility as far as downtime, being able to work, say, at Elder first and then shift the contractor to Centennial, and then allow the village to bring their contractor down to Elder during that downtime to minimize the closure of the sites for the public. So there'll be some consideration if that is moved forward with a positive vote later this evening. Other things I'd like to also note, the other items, water testing, as the board has been directed, staff to complete, has been ongoing. Unfortunately, due to some costs, the ability to test on Thursdays was going to come at a much dramatic higher cost. So at this time, staff decided not to incur the extra $300 per test on top of the fees to test alone. We are testing Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday with Tech Lab, and then we are using the rapid test as we use for the other sites on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, the UIC that Matt Barton, the Lakefront manager, has been working through it. So we've been collecting those results right now. We do have a gray area of Thursdays. Unless the park board wants to allocate dollars for that, staff wouldn't recommend that at this time. We have captured enough of an information bandwidth there that we need. As we move forward with opening the beach, we'll adjust if we do get swimming there at some point, which we're hopeful that we can do once the cleanup is complete, and then we can address that concern at that time. But at this time, just for water quality checks as it's been requested, we're not recommending that as a formal action. Additionally to that, there has been concerns with higher elevated rates of E. coli at Elder Lane Beach. This was brought forward by Executive Director Nizal to Rob Ahan, who then forwarded it on to their staff. Their staff has been working with Park District staff, myself, in regards to try to work in a collaborative manner to try to address this issue. We're going to be supplying them with our records that we've had to date, and then we're going to be identifying any concerns around closures or visual cues that we see in the lake to bring it to their attention. And they're going to be working on their own, looking for cross-contaminations, lead testing, and other forms to try to identify this higher elevated E. coli that we've seen as of late. So that's something that we've been working through with the village as well. In addition to that, we're happy to announce, just as of today, I believe, we received a formal meeting invite from the village staff to engage in regards to stormwater discussions for Elder Lane Beach. So there is a date set in the beginning of August for staff to work with consultants to meet to discuss the topic of stormwater based on our last submittal to the village with our desired plan. So we're excited and anxious to have that meeting to talk through the design parameters that we've put together along with our supporting documents, our modeling and everything else that was completed to better understand the questions and concerns that the village has and how we can address those and work in relationship and try to work for the betterment of the community to help with that issue. So those are a couple of things. The last item I would like to note is the request to submit the permit applications for the temporary dog fence at Centennial Park is still ongoing. The IDNR did complete their public outreach, their 30 days. There was a slew of comments that did come in. We have received those comments from the IDNR. We continue to proceed forward with trying to reestablish the off-leash dog beach at Centennial Beach. In addition to that, we did have further outreach with the United States Army Corps of Engineers. They have decided to take it from a regional permit to an individual permit. And in doing so, will require a 30-day public notice, which should start hopefully at some point, early to mid-July. Right now, we have had a response back from them in regards to additional questions that they have, identifying certain property owners to make aware of the project, sending out a mailer and so forth. So we're working through their questions and the additional required documentation. We're going to be submitting that, hopefully, I was trying to get it done by the end of this week, but a few things dragged a little bit, so we're going to get that done early next week and off to them, so we can get that public comment out to the public and get that next chapter closed, so we can get it, hopefully a response back on how to proceed. As it relates to other updates, we also have put correspondence to the IEPA in regards to the dog fencing, but we have not heard back. And like similar suit, we also have put submission into the Village of Winnetka with the permit request, and we have not heard back on that front either. So we are trying to work all those different avenues, and we will report back when we have further findings. The last item, as it relates to Elder Centennial, the board did ask for the continued update as far as the total combined cost expense to date. In the board packet, there is the updated spreadsheet. The total combined cost to date is $92,532.83 for 2025. That includes $66,000 in change being allocated to the breakwater project itself, about $2,600 towards the dog park, permit fee for the IDNR for $3,300 in change, and then between FOIA and litigation around the projects, there's approximately $20,000 expense there. That is as part of the board packet as requested, and we'll be updating that along with the additional costs and fees that are incurred for the project site to the 60122 account. Is there any questions I can answer in regards to Elder Centennial?
Before we get to any questions or comments by the board members, I'd like to bring up a thought that has come up for me when I attended the Plan Commission meeting, the last one. And as you know, the current design for Centennial Beach and Park has gone through multiple rounds of review and public comment, including feedback from village staff, the Zoning Board of Appeals, and Plan Commission. It's clear that the current plan, while it reflects many stated goals of the community and community interests, that it needs further consideration by Park District staff and consultants to undertake comments made to date by the Village Advisory Board. So with that in mind, I'm proposing that the Park District take a temporary pause on its current zoning applications for Centennial Beach and Park and Elder Beach and Park for the sole purpose of allowing Park District staff and consultants to better align the plans with the external feedback received so far. So with that, I'd like to make a motion to direct staff to pause the current application process for Centennial Beach and Park and for Elder Beach and Park, and to allow Park District staff and consultants to consider the feedback from the village, the Zoning Board of Appeals, and the Plan Commission, and to make appropriate changes to those plans, and to present to this board a revised plan for Centennial Beach and Park and Elder Beach and Park. May I have that motion?
So moved.
Second. Can we go around for a discussion?
Hey, I'll make a comment. It was brought up tonight in public comment that caucus planks mean something. Well, the 2023 Parks Caucus plank, the Winnetka Park District has meaningful support. 83% of respondents from the community in moving forward in its effort to improve and reopen Elder Centennial Beach. As a priority, significant and immediate attention and financial support should be focused on repair and preservation of the beach's bluff tableland, as well as work related to safety, security, and restroom facilities. And it goes on and on. I mean, I was part of that terrible meeting in June of 2022. I think we spent $1.7 million since we withdrew that permit. It's 3 years later. We have seen consistent support from the broader community to make significant improvements to Elder and Centennial. I just want to make sure that a pause doesn't morph into we quit. As one, listen, we have a duty as an agency and as a board to make significant long-term improvements to Elder and Centennial. We obviously have to work with the village. They are the permitting authority. Doesn't allow them to be arbitrary on their permitting authority. I will support a pause, but we have to continue to push forward. It is our obligation. Certainly it's for public good. It's Park District property. I don't want a pause to turn into another 3 years. I won't be on the board in 3 years, but I would prefer it not to be. So I absolutely understand the spirit, intent of your motion. I just want to make sure that we're committed as an agency, as a board, to do what is right for the broader community and protect so that these beaches can sustain for the next 50, 100 years. Thank you.
Commissioner Kodo? I just wanted to confirm with Adam that a pause does not, we don't lose our place in line. We're simply making some amendments that were strongly recommended by each of those two boards, and that those amendments will come back to this board for approval and then re-presentation to the village.
Yeah, when we communicate with the village, if the motion passes, we would communicate to the village that we want to leave our application open, but pause the administrative process. And when we present updated plans, the staff will make a recommendation on whether or not there are material enough changes to warrant a re-review of our application with ZBA and Plan Commission, but it would still remain the same application.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful. That's good.
Commissioner Corley?
Thank you. Yeah, David, I share your passion, and I also share your concerns about any pause adding more time to this. And I'm, well aware of the community's goal of getting this done. And I agree that it does sound like an echo of the famous meeting that you were in that pulled permits for a plan. If I heard this correctly, and I would, it will be reread again before we vote on it. This is not pulling permits. This is very specifically saying that we need to work on this plan. I need to work on this plan. I just got here. And we need to get a plan that you said it exactly right, 50 to 100 years, right? The reason for the pause, my feeling for need for a pause is that the current plan we have, it's cool. I like a lot of things about it. There's opposition to it. There's concerns about it. There's concerns about safety of the pier. All these things. So our choice is to push ahead with that. That plan that that we've been presenting and has had a ton of work done on it, and a lot of revisions and everything else, is a modification of a previous plan, which is a modification of a previous plan. All of these are trying to, one opposition here, and I don't like this, and the village doesn't like that. I feel like right now is maybe the only opportunity we have to take a step back and look at the history of things, which you know, I've done that in preparation for my role on the board. And I see things in the past that have been lost that we can bring back. I see things in the current plan that we should maintain, that will be hard to get through. And it's an opportunity for this new board to reassess. I do agree that this motion should be very, very clear, that it is not anywhere close to, well, I personally do not want to open the door to a delay that's going to that it will be indefinite. Not at all. I want to get this thing done, so we can move on to other stuff. As soon as we get this thing done, all the pros, the staff here, Shannon, the contractors, everybody else, they get to work on building the thing, and then we get to enjoy it. I want that to happen as soon as possible. So my understanding, and we can parse the wording of it, make sure that it's acceptable to us, is it's just a pause. It's a fork in the road. Do we keep pushing this plan, the current plan, through and pack it in like that, or do we take this one opportunity that we have to possibly bring back some things that were lost? That's how I see it, and I 100% share. I did not disagree with anything that you said. Yeah.
Commissioner Tyson?
So just bridging off some of Commissioner Corley's excellent comments, do we mitigate the risk on this, what everybody's concerned about, by time boxing our costs?
Do you want me to
It's a question for anybody.
Yes, I think that will be done in the next meeting once we've been able to get a scope and some idea about consultant arrangements.
But there isn't, for now, we couldn't just say,
We'd like to see
we're on a
it.
30-day pause, we're going to reevaluate that 30-day pause.
We
at
could
our
say
next
that.
meeting.
We could say that, 100%.
I would suggest,
I think we should hear from Shannon about what steps are required administratively to present a plan to you to update the zoning application.
Sure, sorry, I'm a little distracted trying to write things down over here. Okay, so as far as what could possibly come next, so we would work with our consultants to identify that scope and what cost implications could come from that. And I think that we would be able to bring back any appropriate change orders to the next meeting to address that. I think that's fair from that perspective. I don't think we could come back in July with a new plan.
So 7/24/25 change orders and costs associated with those.
I think that's fair, and from that point, I think at that meeting, we could probably, and Costa, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think, I don't want to speak for him, because he's going to be doing most of the work. But as far as in that July meeting, I also think that we could probably timeline a little bit better from there after we have conversations with our consultant teams.
Okay.
If that's fair enough.
Does anybody want to hazard a guess? An absolute outside? Looking at you, Costa. And if it's too much,
I would echo what Shannon has to say here.
Yeah.
We need to define the scope in regards to the changes that need to be made based on the information that we've heard thus far.
Yeah.
We heard plenty of comment from the village teams. We've heard the comments from their review teams of Baird and Associates,
Yeah.
with their review from a coastal consultant standpoint, with their initial concerns and things that were going to be addressed during the permitting phase. So it gives staff an opportunity to learn from those takeaways, along with what we learned through the zoning process, through the plan commission process, and a week ago, attending the design review for the scoreboard at Skokie Playfield. The one common thing that I heard with other entities, especially the metro station, was We are very pleased to hear that you've come back and have addressed the changes and comments that we've made to you, and we're excited to get this plan forward. What we've done thus far was to try to push the plan, and I think Matt Bradley's, as he suggested, the plan is the plan. Well, we've heard loud and clear, the plan's not making it over the hurdle. Change the plan to address what we've heard, make those adjustments so we can have something that they would support, something that the community would love to endorse and own and love to enjoy, and something that this entire park board can get behind and support unitedly and try to get this across the goal line. So I think this is the step that gets us to that next phase of work. I agree. I don't want to lose the time. I don't want to lose the $2 million plus that's been invested in this thus far. The longer we wait, the longer we delay, the higher cost that comes in with this.
Yeah.
Right now, we're looking at probably 2027 construction at best because of the permitting process.
Hey, does that include an elevator?
Stop.
Does that include an elevator?
We would have to discuss options, but.
Was that one of the suggestions? I'm being a little bit of a smart aleck here.
I know.
Has that been one, I haven't.
There was a community, or a member of a board that suggested that.
Okay, so you're saying that that is not on the list of, it's not on the list?
No.
Okay.
It wouldn't be in consideration from a
Okay.
staff or consultant standpoint.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So I just want to say two things. We did have a 2-on-2 meeting, and there was a big.
With two village.
With two village
liaisons.
representatives, so the two lakefront liaisons and the two of us. And there was a massive disconnect where we were looking for conditional recommendations to bring back to this board of elected officials to allow us to make changes with confidence. They were looking for us to make changes. And for us to make changes absent any conditional recommendations was a bit of a risk. So we're taking this step now in good faith. The $2 million that we've spent has been money that we've spent in response to resident input for changes. So it's rational. Every time you make a change, it's going to cost some money. Every time you listen to people and people give their input and you respond to it, it's going to cost some money. And I think we're honing in on the process, and I'm happy about that. And I think we finally understand that if we want conditional recommendations, we're going to have to specifically ask for them in the meetings in a way that perhaps was not as clear as we could have done in zoning and plan. Yes.
Commissioner Rapp, would you
Just
like
Costa want to respond?
Sorry.
Oh, sorry, Costa.
You're good.
I have one easy question. What was the date of the outdoor stormwater meeting?
For the upcoming meeting,
The
anticipated to be had
anticipated to be had?
August 6th.
August 6th. Okay. I just want to confirm that this motion is not putting a pause on that particular meeting, or is it putting a pause
No.
on that meeting?
No.
Okay, okay, just checking. Because we
That's
worked
a
hard to get that
staff-
meeting.
That's
We
a
would like
staff
it
meeting.
sooner than later.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's
okay,
staff
just
meeting,
checking,
and in
just making
regards,
sure.
yeah, to their process with the stormwater study, they needed to have some conversations ahead of that before we had our discussion on the elder
Okay,
portion.
because
so.
because the motion included not just Centennial, but also Elder, so I just
Right,
wanted to
it's
make
a
sure
it's a
that
legitimate question.
Okay,
Thank
okay.
you for the clarification.
And Adam, can you just talk a little bit further about the process? Because I have not, in the time that I've been tracking the village proceedings, observed a situation exactly like ours where things have been given a negative recommendation, because it seems like other entities kind of see things aren't breaking their way and then say, okay, we're going to take a few months and we'll come back to you when we're ready, that we think we have something that you can approve in a favorable way. So we make some changes, we resubmit, and then the village individually determines whether or not we need to go back to have those boards review. So we re-provide the expert testimony with whatever new plan
Right.
we develop.
So with the zoning, we have, both the applicant and the public have rights. And so if our plan that we resubmit after the pause is substantially different than before, the public has a right to see what the new plan is and comment on it.
Okay.
And so they might say, in order to give the public all of their rights to review and comment on it, you have to go back to the ZBA.
Okay. And that's separate from the extent to which we give the public the right to comment at our meetings as we're developing it.
Above and beyond our
Okay.
own public
Okay,
process.
okay, just checking.
And I would say too, I don't think we're considering a resubmittal, but an amendment.
Yeah, it's an amendment.
Okay. Okay, no, I mean, I would certainly welcome the fresh eyes that our new commissioners can offer on this. I think that it will be a positive to have, energy. I think for the rest of us, and we have looked at literally thousands of these plans.
We have a
and
drawer full.
We all have drawers, boxes, closets full of these plans. So I welcome that, because sometimes, you just get stagnant in reviewing them, and sometimes fresh eyes can bring to light ideas that you didn't have before, or ideas that you thought weren't good, but then with a few tweaks could be really good. So I welcome that.
Thank you, Commissioner Rapp. Commissioner Root, would you like to provide comment?
I just want to reiterate something Commissioner Corliss said, that, it's necessary to try to bring back what's been lost. And what's been lost is that we were unanimous in our desire to unite Elder and Centennial to build a big, beautiful 1,000-foot headland beach system that would actually preserve the coast beaches and protect the bluff. And for various reasons, one being we didn't have the land we needed. That vision was lost, and it appears to be remain lost. So I also welcome the new eyes of our new commissioners, and I have a suggestion. We don't have the land, we haven't had the land, but as a government body, we have every right to move forward and secure the parcel of land that we need to create what was originally desired and had community support behind it. So as we are thinking about changes, perhaps we can also start thinking about what we need to do to get the property that we need to create the vision that Commissioner Seaman and I were wild about back in 2021 and 2022, but was lost because of the special interests that kept placing additional demands. So it's something for this board to really think about. And I agree that where we're headed right now doesn't look very promising. And so I certainly support a pause, but I agree with Commissioner Seaman and Commissioner Corley that we don't want to stop this. But maybe we do want to go back and look where we started, what we've lost, and how we get there, because we have a vehicle to do that. How we get there to do what this community has wanted. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Root. So with that, I'd like to take a roll call on this motion. I'll read it again. Yes. I'm just wondering if I should add in the come back with the change order part, or if that's just, we can just have that as a... Okay. So may I have a motion to give staff, may I have a motion to pause the current application process for Centennial Beach and Park and Elder Beach and Park to allow Park District staff and consultants to consider the feedback from the Village Zoning Board of Appeals and Plan Commission and make appropriate changes to the plans. And to present to this board in the July 24-25 meeting, an update on what sort of change orders we need from the consultants that have advised us thus far on this plan, and also to advise the board on a reasonable timeline to devise this revised plan for Centennial Beach and Park and Elder Beach Park and Park.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. All right, can we do a roll call?
Commissioner
Go ahead.
Commissioner Tyson,
Yes.
Commissioner Kodo,
Yes.
Commissioner Forley,
Yes.
Commissioner Rapp,
Yes.
Commissioner Root,
Yes.
Commissioner Seaman,
You know, I believe the board should be unanimous in this, although I don't, you know, I'll say yes. I'll say yes.
Commissioner
Yes. So I also, now that Shannon has talked about that we will have to turn to the consultants to figure out what sort of change orders are required to proceed with a revised plan, I'd like to raise an additional consideration for the board. And that is, given the complexity of the issues that we've been confronted with on these beach projects, particularly around land use and zoning and community engagement, I'd like to, I think it'd be beneficial to bring to the Park District some additional support. And specifically, I'd like to ask staff to explore the engagement of a land use zoning attorney and a communications firm to assist the Park District with navigating the zoning application process and communicating effectively with the public and stakeholders. It's not a commitment to hire, but rather an authorization for staff to research this potential, these potential engagements and to bring recommendations to the board at the July 24 meeting. So I'd like to understand the scope of the work and the costs in connection with such engagements. So I'd like to ask for a motion to give staff that direction and come back to the board in July 24 with information regarding the potential engagement of a land use / zoning attorney and a communications firm for those purposes.
So moved.
Second.
All right, and can we go around the room for discussion? And I'd like to start with Commissioner Corley.
Yeah. Sounds great.
Perfect. Commissioner Rapp?
Those were not necessarily the consultants that I would have put as ones that were needed at this point. So I'll listen to other comments with an open mind and form an opinion from there.
Thank you.
I don't think there's any risk at this point. We're just asking for information back from staff to be considered in July, so I'm
Correct.
supportive.
Over the course of the zoning Board of Appeals hearings and the Plan Commission hearings, there were some consistent misunderstandings, which I think would be helped, that could be clarified with the communications team. And I think that there was a lot of injection of personal opinion as opposed to staying within the clear, bright scope of mapping to the zoning standards and mapping to the plan, the Winnetka 2040 plan. So I think some observations from someone who's very skilled in this area and very specific to the land use piece and the zoning piece and the mapping to the plan piece would help us.
Hey, you don't have a vote in this, but as our counsel, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. You sat in a lot of those meetings.
Did. I'm in favor of whatever in the best interest of the Park District. So if it makes it more likely than not that we will be successful, or the Park Board will be successful, I'm in favor of it.
So you're saying that this will help in the success?
The staff will come back with proposals for you, you'll evaluate the proposals, and if you think that they're gonna make it more likely than not that the Park District's application will be successful, I'm in favor of it.
Got it, okay. Thank you.
All right. Colleen? Commissioner Root, excuse me. Do you have comment with regard to this motion?
Well, along with Commissioner Rapp, a PR firm and a land use attorney would not have been my focus of the expertise that's needed here. One of the problems that I've had through the hearings that I kept hearing from the zoning board, heard from the planning commission, is where is the data to support the structures that you're building? We've never had any hydrodynamic modeling on this, and so I would amend this motion to include also the engagement, and I will take comments. But what I thought we needed all along was to have a true coastal engineer. And if you look at Kenilworth and you look who they hired and how quickly their project moved forward, the same is true up in Highland Park. We have a wonderful civil construction engineer in Matthew Wright, but we have lacked the coastal experience so that we can explain why we need structures of armored stone at a certain place and at a certain level. So I'm going to amend the motion to include the engagement of a hydrodynamic modeling coastal engineer.
Commissioner Root, thank you for that comment. I would ask,
Does that need a second? Because she was making a motion.
well,
to
I
amend.
want to ask, I don't know protocol, you can, but I was going to ask Costa to provide us, Costa Cutulas to provide us with some insight on that.
Once again, I am not a coastal engineer. I'm not an engineer. I know a lot about the process. That's because I've been embraced by this process for the last 15 years plus. So I've had an opportunity to learn a lot. What I heard as a common theme from our consultants that we did go out to RFP and hire, GZA was one of the ones that came in and put a proposal in, and so was Baird and Associates, along with Shadid and Associates, who paired with Red Barn Associates, who was the principal on the project lead for them. The discussion that we had through that process and the understanding was we identified the best suitable candidate for the project. Through that selection process, which was a panel committee amongst Park District staff, sat through and reviewed everything. Based on that findings and the firm that we did hire, the information that we gathered through this process was the design that we're proposing is a shoreline improvement that doesn't have large coastal impacts because of the existing structures that are there proposed to date. The topography and the bathymetry of the contours on the beach, the elevations of the depths of the lake, the sand movement that we've seen thus far through the system. It was suggested by our coastal consultant who was hired for the project, as well as support from our Speaking Associates, that would be money wasted because our impacts to that coastal zone would not impact as it's been suggested. So that was the reason why we held off on a lot of those designs, not only from the cost implementation stage, but also additional time to complete those models in LICA. I will suggest that the work we did successfully at Lloyd, we did not model. Once again, based on the coastal environment and the topography that was there, the large breakwater, the cooling ponds and everything else, it did not warrant it. And we built our design and we've been following the protocol that we put in through the public review process through the IDNR and the Corps, which included a 5-year sand nourishment of properties 3 households north, 10 households to the south. We are suggesting, as we did back in '22 when we had the permit submitted back in April, that we are going to follow that same suit. I'm comfortable and confident, but once again, this is from my own personal opinion as a staff member, I don't hold the credentials, that if we propose the project that we had to date, or any of our previous projects that we had proposed to date, the modeling would not necessarily be required. So that would be my opinion, but once again, I don't hold the credentials as others do. Oddly enough, I actually have the permit application for Kenilworth with me, because I've had an opportunity to review that. The project scope and size of what they've put into the lake, the groin with construction is approximately 120 feet long and a crest elevation of 585.5. Once again, very similar in size and scale and scope of what we had proposed previously. Their coastal design and where they're at with the bend of the lake is a little bit different from ours. And once again, I'll stand behind the consultants that we hired and their approach. That would be my opinion.
Also,
Lloyd has also been monitored by the U.S. Army Corps and the IDNR.
We monitor it
Yeah,
internally,
and report to them.
and we have a duty to report to them if we have findings that are not accurate in regards to our replenishment of sand, which we have not had. We've had just the opposite because the natural contour of the lake, the basins accumulate, the boat basin accumulates a lot of sand that we nourish our beach with. This year, we actually went a step further and we asked requirements so we can put the sand on the south side of the structure because we are to the point where we're overnourished at Lloyd. So not is it only working, but it's working too well. So we're, like I said, from a sand starvation standpoint of what we've seen, based on the low lake environments from 2013 to date, and what we've seen in 2020 with the high lake events, the design of the lake and that stretch of beach, in my opinion, does not require monitoring. But once again, I don't hold those credentials. So that's just my opinion.
President Gibson, what I would clarify too, if there is a potential amendment to look at, to clarify what that terminology is, and more for Commissioner Root, to clarify that terminology, as Illinois does not designate coastal engineer. If it's a coastal consultant, that's different, more accurate of what can be done in Illinois. And also the modeling is a process, not a type of consultant.
We need to find out.
If I may I respond?
Yes, you may.
Okay. Again, I don't know the correct terminology. What I do know is that both GZA and Baird have coastal experts who do the hydrodynamic modeling, and they will look at what your plan is, and they will tell you what they think is minimally necessary to protect and preserve. And again, this goes back to where this vision started, which was a true headland beach system. That's not where we are today. Where we had a unified beach, 1,000 feet, which is not where we are today. So I'm not quite sure what revision to what appears to be a plan that has not been well received by the commission. I'm not sure how hiring a prominent land use zoning attorney and PR firms, we've hired PR firms in the past. In fact, at one point, there was a lobbyist that was working agency that I see no records that the Park District ever hired, but the partner with whom the Park District was doing a plan had engaged. I mean, we've done this in the past. So I'm somewhat curious as to how these additional experts are going to assist with this process. Again, I go back and look at what we've lost, and this goes to Commissioner Corley's comment. We've lost a way, and yet it doesn't seem that there's any appetite at this point, some 5 years down the road, by this board to look at what's necessary to secure the land we need to build the project. And so, again, we can have a very polished, hired gun come in and try to intimidate, if that's what we're trying to do, our village. We can try to spend more spend. I don't see how that gets us where we originally wanted to be. So, just my thoughts.
So is there, Commissioner Root, can you hear me?
Commissioner Root, Adam Simon is trying to ask you a question, I think.
Commissioner Root?
I don't know who's asking the question, I'm sorry.
Adam Simon. Adam Simon.
Commissioner Root, so do you have, did you make a motion to amend the motion on the floor?
I did, because I thought that what the zoning board kept asking and what I heard from the plan commission is, where is your expert data to support this plan? And I think we have a 3.5 page memo from Red Barn and Shabika, but we don't have any support behind it. And again, if we're saying that the plan really isn't designed to augment beach or preserve the bluff, then perhaps we don't need it. Again, my thought was, why don't we bring in the engineering competency that other park districts have availed themselves of when they are moving forward to do a beach restoration project.
Commissioner Root, could you repeat what your amendment is?
Well, I said to engage the services of a coastal engineering firm that provides hydrodynamic modeling. To me, that seems to be far more beneficial than a quick lawyer.
We have the motion.
Yeah. We have the requested amendment, so, yeah, we need a second on an amendment.
I'll be happy to second it, but I did have more discussion on the public relations firm. And just that, one of the things that can I comment on that now, or should I wait?
Let's vote on the amendment first, so we know what the full scope, what we're voting overall.
But I can still talk about the original motion.
Yes.
This is on the amendment.
We discussed it. We should discuss the amendment.
Start us off.
Okay.
Commissioner Corley?
Right. So let me check my notes here. First off, just a bit of levity. If I can go one day without hearing the phrase coastal engineer, that'll be. I'm just joking. I'm joking around, but to clarify that was. Yeah. So I think what's happening here with this amendment is it's something that I would like to bring forth as a thing that can kind of can confuse the way we proceed on the board. We have a motion to hire 2 consultants. Or to, I don't even think it's that, it's to look at the cost of hiring 2 consultants that could be useful in the future, that could solve 2 problems. And there's a proposal to amend that to hire a 3rd consultant for something that we're not prepared to really do yet. We had an earlier motion to take some time, reconsider the plan. And during that, I could completely see a case where we, if let's say a miracle happens and we come up with a 1,000-foot headland beach system, I, like you, Colleen, would have these questions like, are there, is it structured correctly for 1,000 foot versus what we have at Lloyd? And I would want to make sure that those questions are answered. And I don't have those questions right now. I don't have the final design. So putting a motion in place right now to add a 3rd consultant to a motion to look into the cost of 2 other consultants for, related, but, not the same thing. I just wanted to look at a situation like this as it doesn't have to be presented as A or B. Like if we vote for these 2 consultants, then we can't vote for the coastal engineer later. Or if we, if we do add the coastal engineer, then it has to come with the other two. That's it's a logical fallacy that has to be the case. We can vote on this amendment. I would vote no to adding a coastal engineer to this because I don't see it being related to these other two items. So I'm not saying that I'm opposed to more engineering data. I mean, I'd love, I love it. But right now, I don't need it. And these other two things, looking into the cost of it, I think that, like you said, Cully, there's already precedent for, the park district, or, for PR firms in the past. And I don't know if it was successful or not. I think communication with the public is a challenge. Getting messages out to people who are otherwise busy and trusting us to do our business is a challenge. It'd be interesting to have some differing opinions on that. Same thing with the land use. It's a challenge for us. It'd be interesting to have more information on it. And the hydrodynamics of the beach. Maybe it'd be interesting to have more information on that. But right now, we've just sort of flung ourselves back into a little bit more nebulous state on the plan. And so I would, the other thing I think is important to point out is not adding the coastal engineer to this motion right now does not preclude us, from hiring one later. So I feel like it's just important to point that out, that it doesn't have to be added to this. Like, this is not the slate of consultants that we would hire for the year. That's all.
Thank you, Commissioner Corley. Commissioner Tyson, did you want to comment?
I share the similar thinking, nothing to add.
Perfect. Commissioner Rapp, would you like to comment?
I think adding it is just getting more information, and then we'll vote individually when we have the scope and what other vendors can offer.
I would clarify that the amendment was to engage.
Not seek a proposal?
Correct.
In the way that the other two are?
Correct. It's
Okay.
different.
Commissioner Root, would you consider amending or
I
further?
would certainly amend to say, consider a proposal.
Costa, would you comment?
If I can make a comment,
Yes.
as of right now, we would be chasing a proposal based on a plan that we don't know.
Right.
So as we heard before in regards to comments, and not to quote Ted Witherchenko, but the plan isn't here yet. We are looking to adopt and change the plan based on proposals that we're looking to bring back to the board in July. Once we have those proposals and that scope figured out, that work from those proposals will then direct us to a plan. At that point, when we have a physical plan that the park board will support, I would suggest that's the time to bring it back to the park board to say, okay, here's the plan that we want to move forward with, go back to special use. While we're under that or before, however it's deemed appropriate, then we bring in that third-party consultant where it's a coastal engineering firm that can do the hydrodynamic modeling of that plan that's been approved by the board. I think right now we'd be spinning our wheels. They would give us, it could be between 60 to 75,000. It would just be a benchmark. So I think right now that would be wasted time, especially if we're looking to try to turn this around in the quick, fast nature that it's intended to, so we don't lose our steam. The other thing that I would like to note, and I apologize,
Okay.
the village has brought on a third-party consultant that I don't want to say people forget about, but has been reviewing our plan along the way. I would suggest, I don't know this for a fact, but if there was something astronomically wrong with the plan that they felt that would be detrimental to the lakefront environment in Winnetka, I don't feel that they would support it to the point where they felt it was appropriate to bring it to plan, zoning, and so forth. Correct. I would suggest that they would have, brought back, hey, we don't approve with what's being recommended. Go back. These are our concerns. Address these concerns. Show us the hydraulic modeling. Show us the the report, show us all the information to support your claim, because we don't feel it's gonna work. So I think that's a missing piece. And the last item, I promise, the one thing that I would suggest, and I know Shannon and I spoke about this previously, and the cost I don't think is gonna rise to the board level, but now's the time to strike for a parking study if we wanna make sure that we wanna get valid information to bring back to those boards and bodies, because we're gonna waste time if we wait till January. So that's something that Shannon and I have been talking about.
That doesn't require board.
But just something else that we're thinking
So
about.
I want to just paraphrase to make sure I'm understanding this, because you're talking about some stuff that occurred before I came on this board. So when you presented the current plan to the village, they actually reviewed it first before it went on to ZBA, or village staff. They actually reviewed it first before it went to ZBA. And village staff would have highlighted to you that there's a issue with the hydrology of the plan, or the hydrology caused by that, or the current plan, if there was in fact a problem.
I would
And that
assume
was-
that would have been the
right,
case.
and that was not what
Of the
happened.
3 revisions that we went back and forth on. So it
Okay.
wasn't just a one-shot, it was, here's our initial comments and concerns, address these, you address them. Here's some more that based on the second review, and here's our final that you can go to submit with.
Okay.
So
We
it's
submitted
been
it for
an
Centennial
educational
on April
process.
3rd, 2024, and our first zoning board of appeals appearance was October 10th, 2024. And during that period, there were 3 rounds of comments, and the village staff would not have accepted it into the process had they
Had concerns.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
And we do pay a separate amount for that pass-through cost to their third-party
Oh.
coastal consultant for their review.
Dearman Associates, correct.
Right.
That's incurred cost to the park district, the village does not get that.
Yes, we do pay it.
Can I make a comment? Can I make a comment?
Just one moment, please, Commissioner Root. I don't know if you can hear, but Commissioner Seaman is wanting to make a comment, and he actually said it before you. So
I mean,
sorry.
I know I'm a little cranky tonight. I admit it. I'm a little cranky. Tonight?
Night is come.
But I gotta tell you, I feel like I'm back in 2023 with this conversation. This is what the pausing of a permit application does. It reopens coastal engineer. It reopens, we gotta get that land between Elder and Centennial. There's a reason, Colleen, Commissioner, you know this, that we separated Elder and Centennial because we don't own it. We'd like to, we tried to. We are re-litigating, discussing all of these issues that we discussed post-June of '22. And I remember this in '23. We just don't need to as a board. I warn the new board members, do not be susceptible to going backwards. Pausing isn't going backwards, right? We should not go back. It's a short pause and we move forward. Again, this is the public speech. These are Park District assets, damn it. And we have an obligation to protect them, invest, activate, broaden access. We have a great plan. This isn't coastal engineer. This is a political movement within the community that doesn't want anything done to our beaches. For whatever reason. They have a right to have a view. But please, let's not go back. We need to pause for a short period of time and move forward and do what we have the obligation, duty, and right to do for the broader public.
Commissioner Root, I did
sort of intervene there when you were trying to comment, but your comment will be the last, and then we'll take votes.
Well, my comment is I withdraw my amendment to the motion because I see there's not support with it. But in so doing, I will also respond to Commissioner Seaman's assumption of what he thinks the public is. I think a large portion of disagreement by the public is they well realize that special interest has really determined what the design for Centennial would be, and they're reacting to it. And so this is, again, why I do want to look back and say we had a wonderful, wonderful plan with the 2030 waterfront plan for a United Beach with a true Edward Beach system. It's been totally lost. And as a government body, we have the ability to secure that property in between if we so desire. It can be done. And we are going back to discussions of June of 2021. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Root. I would like to ask for a roll call on the motion that was made originally. If you want me to repeat it, I can.
I had a
Oh,
comment.
sorry,
on the original.
sorry.
Is now the right time?
Well, on the original, that's
On the
right. I
original
forgot,
motion.
sorry,
Okay.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes, go.
Just to comment on the scoping of the public relations firm.
Yes.
One of the magical things about the Kenilworth process is that at different points, they ask people, which option do you like better? So as we rethink about these plans, I think that getting, some statistically valid, credible information from the public to show the boards that we actually have support for the project is an important thing. So I think it's very important that the public relations scoping includes getting that kind of unbiased, statistically valid information, and it's not feeling like lipstick on a pig. So I think that's an important thing to me.
It's a quick question. Do we have some of that information from the previous, because like some of these previous plans were put through that process, right?
We made a conscious decision not to get it.
I mean, there were
We had 6 plans. We had 6 plans that we circulated across the farmer's market for the entire summer of 2023. We had 6 plans. We had open houses, we gathered feedback. This plan is the result of that refinement of those 6 plans. I believe that process has taken place. I believe now we are in the stage where we are directing our efforts to respond to the comments of planning and zoning and the trustees. And I would like to focus very specifically on their comments, because I believe they have received that input from many, many citizens. Public comment takes place at each of these hearings over the 20 hours of testimony we've engaged in, and those comments from the public are very well known and crystal clear.
Just listening to the comments, I mean, I would say watching the zoning and the plan commission, there were a much smaller percentage of comments in support of what we were advancing. And so my input is I do feel like as we go forward, having some data to show more broad-based support for our plan and showing that our plan is received positively would help us through that process.
Thank you, Commissioner Rapp. I would like to ask for a roll call vote on the original motion.
Commissioner Caucus.
Yes.
Commissioner Forley.
Yes.
Commissioner Rapp.
Yes.
Commissioner Root.
Yes.
Commissioner Seaman.
Yes.
Commissioner Tyson.
Yes.
Commissioner Gibson.
Yes.
All right, so now we turn back to Costa. And he's going to talk about the access license agreement. No, you did.
6.1.
Oh, 6.1. Oh, my apologies. For the bid, the cleanup bid.
Yeah.
With Misfits.
Misfits Construction, yes. President Gibson, thank you so much. I'll try to keep this brief. I think this is one that should be fairly easy as a pass-through with the board. I think you have all had an opportunity to review this. As discussed before, unfortunately, our first attempt to solicit bids for the project did not yield any fruit. So we went back out, and unfortunately, we only received one bid back. After some opportunities to review the references for that bid, for that contractor, who did work in Highland Park, not only for the Park District, but the city, and also called on, I believe it was Downers Grove Park District and another municipality, I don't remember off the top of my head. But long story short, everybody has said that they were a pleasure to work with. They did exactly what they were supposed to do. They were on time, on target, within pricing and so forth. And after telling and discussing the limits of our project, they all felt that they would be able to handle our scope of work without issue. So that was comforting to understand and know. With that being said, the bid that did come in from Misfit Construction out of Chicago, Illinois was for $138,750. The proposed timeline for construction would be July 21st through August 1st. So that's encouraging. They did have an alternate date of October 13th through October 24th. We would like to stick with the original date of July. I know that's going to be a closure during the beach season, but that's also an opportunity to get that work done and have it reopened with potentially swimming post that completion, with swimming still to be had in the season. Also, that date also avoids the conflicts with potential New Trier parking lot, Elder Lane parking lot that New Trier utilizes for some of their students. It did come back as land-based work. So in a moment, we will also discuss a construction access license agreement to be able to cross 261 Sheridan Road to gain access to Centennial Beach from the land-based work. Due to the potential risk of unknown hazards as in regards to buried or things that we might find, I would like to anticipate adding on a 10% contingency to the project to have a little breathing room in case there's anything that comes up that is found unknown. With that would drive the cost of the project not to exceed $152,625. So at this point, staff is recommending the Park Board accept the sole bid from Misfits Construction, original bid of $138,750, to approve a 10% contingency with a not to exceed amount of $152,625. This time I'd like to answer any questions the board may have.
I do have a question. What is the timing on the village work on the stormwater outfall?
Based on early conversations with James Bernal, Director of Engineering, as I mentioned earlier tonight, we want to work in conjunction with one another. There could be opportunities where they're able to complete their scope of work within the time frame that's noted here. We can do that with our basically sequencing of the project. So if we have Misfits start at Elder, because the end of the pier needs to be removed as planned in order for the village to gain access to the work that they need to do underneath the pier. During that time when it's closed, because they would be hauling the materials out, they can move to, Misfits can move to Centennial, complete the work over there. At the same time that the beach is closed, we can take advantage of that and have the village execute on their work at that same time, hopefully within the week time that's been identified for that work to be completed, and then pull off the job, both contractors out before the August 1st deadline, and then reopen the beach accordingly. So there's a good opportunity, but we still need to work through those logistics with the contractor.
That sounds like a great game plan. So the village has confirmed to you though that they can meet the same timing that Misfits is proposing, July 21 through August 1st.
Based on loose conversations with the Director of Engineering. Now, this was not with the construction firms completed. We need to understand the logistics of gaining access to the site, staging of equipment, staging of product. So once the board decides tonight on the action that they want to direct staff with, we'll further the conversation and come back with an anticipated plan and update the board accordingly once we're able to have that conversation.
Okay. Commissioner Rapp.
Commissioner Seaman, did you want to ask your question first?
Thought I heard some feedback there. This is a finance question. This $150,000. Does that go into the greater Elder Centennial, or because this isn't really? I mean, this is important. This is really aside from the Elder Centennial project. I think it's really important that this be classified certainly as, it's a capital, but it's not really the Elder Centennial project per se, right?
I'll challenge you to
Okay.
the fact that if we were under construction for the original scope of work as presented, this would have been identified in that scope of work to be done. So this is kind of putting the cart a little bit before the horse, but it would have been part of that scope.
That's why you're the expert.
Oh, sure, well, that's good, expert, but.
They identified the account number.
Oh, did they?
They
Okay, sorry.
identified the account number.
Okay, that's why you're the expert.
Yeah, 3700-60122 is the account.
Here you go. Not like you've memorized it already.
Do you know what, does the village have to come to us for some level of approval to come down our beach and so on and so forth? And, well, DeMayo might be marine-based, I don't know. What's that process?
So I've been in conversations with Rob Bahan on this particular process and how that's going to work between both of our agencies. So that's administrative logistics on how to make that work. I've proposed to Mr. Bayhand that we need to have some sort of agreement in place
Yes, we should.
to work through those to make sure that the village is protected and the park district is protected
Correct.
equally throughout that process. There is when the old street, Elder Lane, was gifted to the park district, there was language in that for the village to be able to maintain their infrastructure.
Correct. Right.
So that is the pipe infrastructure that's under the sand, under the pier, all of that.
Right.
So they have access to do with that part anytime they want, whenever they want.
Without any agreement.
For that particular part, yes.
Okay.
But because it's under the park district's pier, they would have to access through another area of the park. Those conversations still need to be had on what that access looks like, what those logistics looks like, what those protections are on both sides. The conversations that I've had with the village on that, we've talked about this being on the agenda tonight because they are waiting on a response for this because that last 20 foot of the pier has to be removed before they can do any work. And so Mr. Bayhan has relayed to me that the village will start working on that document, for lack of a better term, MOU, whichever type of agreement we want to call it, and to indicate what their contractor is looking to do for their means and methods on how to do their work. Because they already have that contractor, so they have that relationship already. As we, if we are able to have the work approved, then we can work with the contractor on our side and come to collaboration on that to make that work out.
Okay. Thank you.
Of course.
Does any other commissioners like to speak? Commissioner Rapp? Commissioner Rapp?
I just had a question on the license agreement, which I know we're voting on separately, but obviously it's related to this. Is that agreement that was distributed, that draft, ready to be signed by both parties? Or is it a draft that is still in negotiation? That will determine
The draft license agreement that was provided today was based on the conversations with the owner of 261 is final, is how I see it.
Okay, so we will be able to execute both parts of the cleanup for Elder #1 and Centennial #2 with that agreement as it is, with no further amendments.
Correct.
Okay, good. Yay. Okay, thank you.
Do I have any other commissioner comments to this cleanup bid? No? All right, well, could we have, may I have a motion
to accept the sole bid of $138,750,000 from Misfits Construction Company of Chicago, Illinois, and to approve a 10% contingency for a total not to exceed $152,625,000 for the Elder Lane and Centennial Beach cleanup project bid.
So moved.
Second.
Can we do a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Cotto?
Yes.
Commissioner Forley?
Yes.
Commissioner Rapp? Yes. Commissioner Root?
Yes,
Commissioner Seaman?
Yes.
Commissioner Tyson?
Yes.
Commissioner Gibson?
Yes. Does anyone have comment with regard to the license agreement, the form of license agreement that was provided, or can we move into a vote on that as well?
Just need a motion.
Okay, then I'll go ahead and make the motion. May I have a motion to approve the final license agreement as presented to the board tonight and authorizing Executive Director Nazal to execute and deliver the agreement for that license agreement, excuse me.
So moved.
Second.
Can we have a roll call vote on that?
Commissioner Forley?
Yes.
Commissioner Rapp? Yes. Commissioner Root?
yes,
Commissioner Seaman?
Yes.
Commissioner Tyson?
Yes.
Commissioner Cotto?
Yes.
Commissioner Gibson?
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, so now we're just moving on to section 6.3 of the agenda, and it's a proposed policy manual update to chapter 4.14, outlining the responsibilities in the oath of commissioners, mainly to further clarify the need for confidentiality with respect to draft materials that are delivered to draft agenda and related materials that are delivered to commissioners before they're ready for public submission, and also just clarifying that closed sessions discussions need to be maintained as confidential. May I have a motion to, it was set forth in resolution 2025-06-26-01, and I'd like to ask for a motion to adopt that resolution.
So moved.
Second.
Would we like to have discussion on it?
Adam, you got any thoughts on this?
I'll give you my legal comments.
Yeah, that's what, yeah.
I think the changes are lawful.
Okay. That's all. Sure.
Commissioner Rapp? I'm sorry, Commissioner? Oh, no,
That's okay. No, I'm fine.
Commissioner Tyson?
Nothing to add.
Commissioner Rapp?
Just a couple of points of clarification. We received the Friday update, which should identify things that will be addressed by the board ahead of our meetings. Sometimes on that Friday, they include things that are in the preliminary packet. So I just wanted to reconfirm, one, that those documents are public documents at the moment that they are sent.
To the public.
The Friday submission
Friday-
to commissioners.
The Friday,
draft.
That's draft, it is most definitely not.
no, your weekly summary.
Oh,
My weekly.
I see.
My weekly reports are public records at any time because they are sent.
Disseminated publicly.
Okay, so we are able to forward them immediately after we receive them.
Yes.
And they include a list of the non-confidential items that should be expected to be on the agenda in the packet, in the list that you update, correct?
Yes, I mean, those
Okay.
are tentative or scheduled. It doesn't mean that something could change from
Okay.
here or there. If there's anything that's confidential, from an email perspective, is what I've done is sent those encrypted, so they are easier to recognize as confidential.
Okay. I guess just thinking about the most recent situation and perhaps a precipitating factor for why this is being included, I did feel that it was for the topic as a result of the situation, there was a lot of proactive public communication about an issue that was very near and dear to the hearts of many in the community, which, while it was not a positive at the start, I did feel like the resulting communication was positive. And I'm just wondering if we can give further consideration to doing more communication like that, not in response to a situation, but if it is the intent to talk about a potentially controversial topic or a topic that the public will have passion for, perhaps being more proactive in our communications on it, on a, like we could have sent the same communications on that particular topic on the Thursday and been ahead of it. I think so. So I understand the intent for commissioners, but I think that should be balanced with, we should not have situations where we're slipping in a big topic and everyone's seeing it on Tuesday at 6 o'clock, like a major topic, like surplusing the trucks. Okay, fine. Like people don't need to know that ahead of time, but feeling like someone is trying to, slip something in is not a good feeling for the public, and I think it does not serve us well. So I just wanted to highlight that concern and, additional thought that I think would be helpful in terms of avoiding the situation, but also maintaining positive rapport with our public.
Thank you, Commissioner Rapp. Do we have any other commissioner comments with respect to this motion?
Yeah, just really briefly, I think the marking it or encrypting it is a nice, really clear sign that it's confidential. And then I think if something's not encrypted or it's just in a regular email, marking it as confidential can make it really clear. So I think those two things are really important, so that it's crystal clear to everybody that it's confidential. I think the way I read this page, this is something that was maybe implied, but not really like articulated in the document. So I think it's a good thing. I think it's crucial that we be able to discuss things confidentially that that are later revealed to the public or later just completely dropped. And I don't know if it's appropriate to ask you, Adam, but do you have a personal opinion on it?
So I just want to clarify something. The purpose of this is not to engage in secret meetings, obviously.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, the purpose of this is so that staff can communicate with the board on preliminary agenda items, and individual commissioners can give feedback to staff before the agenda is finalized.
Exactly.
And so the incident that Commissioner Rapp referred to is a perfect example where there was feedback from commissioners. The final result of the agenda was different than the one on Friday that was released. And so the system worked the way it was supposed to, except for the fact that the preliminary agenda didn't remain amongst the commissioners.
Right, correct.
And so the opportunity between Friday and Tuesday is to get feedback from the commissioners to staff. So when the agenda is published, it doesn't have things that don't have your support.
Yeah, and I may have phrased that in a way like that, it's important that we be able to discuss things in secret. I didn't really mean that. I meant that we can just
You're
for the record. No, look, I did the boot camp. I know what the penalty is, okay? I meant what you just said. Yeah.
Do we have any other commissioner comments?
We do,
Okay,
if I may.
you may.
I took reprimand during the April meeting. I took additional reprimand in the May meeting. So let's talk what this is about. This was directed at me. Now, tonight, I saw a real positive change, and it deals with the ability of the public to look at the draft of the comprehensive plan. before this board moves forward to approve it. And in the past, for the benefit of the new commissioners who may not know this, we had many situations where there were major motions and votes that came very late after the Friday agenda and were slipped in at a very late hour. And it's my hope that this board is committed to providing the public with adequate notice, and I even suggested to our president that we adopt a policy where we may have a first reading of a major issue. I'll give you an example, the May 2023 resolution, where it is read during one meeting, discussed, and then voted on during the second meeting, so that the public has time to come in and look at these things and have an opportunity to express their thoughts. This is to be an open meeting. So again, I will not vote against this evening, but I would ask that this board and staff, particularly the executive director, it was a very positive to have an email sent out to the community on this particular issue. Had that gone originally, we would not have had it wouldn't have been a problem, and Commissioner Rapp has expressed that tonight. So again, let's call a spade a spade, and I have no difficulty with the policy and the concept behind it, provided that this board is transparent and we give our public adequate notice.
Very good. Thank you, Commissioner Root. Can we move to a roll call on that?
Commissioner Hodo,
Yes.
Commissioner Corley.
Yes.
Commissioner Rapp.
Yes.
Commissioner Rouge.
Yes.
Commissioner Seaman.
This board's always transparent. Always transparent. Yes.
Commissioner Tyson.
Yes.
Commissioner Gibson.
Yes.
Motion carries.
We're now turning to Executive Director Nazal for her report.
All of your weekly statuses are attached to the packet, and as well as legal expenses for May and the golf club update. Also, as a note of interest, that Kemper Sports will be here at the July meeting to give, this is June, not July. So they will be here for the July meeting to give an update on where they have been going over the past 6 months or a little longer. Any questions for me?
Love the weekly status update. Thank you.
Thank you for your
Yeah.
work. Your work.
Is it helpful to have the questions for Kemper ahead of time?
Yes,
Okay.
yes,
Okay, no, because I have a list.
yeah, for sure, yeah, like, send them my way. I'll relay those to Kemper so they can be prepared for the meeting in July.
Okay.
Absolutely.
My other question is, 4th of July, are we, what is the plan?
The plan is the plan. No, I'm just kidding. Sorry, I couldn't help myself. It's kind of the same old. I know I got your email. I forwarded it to Toby, so we can make sure that everybody is has all the details and everything for 4th of July, but shouldn't be any different from previous years.
Okay, just checking.
Yeah, of course.
With something.
I think we've had a lot of commissioner discussion tonight, but I will check to see if there are any additional general commissioner comments that people would like to make. Well, I like that silence. So with that, may I have a motion to adjourn the meeting at 9:40 on June 24th?
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.